Chapter 753. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's surprise, Qiu Tong added, "Who knows? Previously, they didn't come much. However, in the past few days, they first sent over the awakening pill, then came over every day to check on young Mrs. condition. It's as if they suddenly care about her. I don't know what Lord Sect Leader is up to." Zhang Xiaohua said disdainfully. "Who cares what medicine she's selling? As long as she can cure young Mrs. illness, it's fine." "Sai Xiaohua, I'll have to rely on you. That doctor only said that young Mrs. condition is getting better because of the awakening pill. He didn't say anything else." Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment before saying, "I still need around 10 days to find a new medicine. We can only muddle through for now. I hope young Miss can pull through." 10 days? What kind of medicine would take so long to find? "Xiaohua, if you have any difficulties, you can tell me. If you need any herbs, I'll ask Ling Xiang Peak for them, okay?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "Big sister Qiu Tong, I know what you mean. The problem is, how are you going to use these herbs? I don't think it'll be easy for you to explain, right?" Qiu Tong was dejected. Zhang Xiaohua continued. "Also, just the herbs alone won't be enough. So don't worry, I'll do my best to save young Mississippi." Qiu Tong nodded. "If you can save young Miss, I'll even do anything to repay you." "OMG, Zhang Xiaohua looked as if she had been knocked down. She said, "I was taken in by big sister Qiu Tong. She gives me a salary of 3 coins every month. Just treat it as me working for Huanxi Manor. After that, just give me banknotes." "Money grubber." Qiu Tong burst out laughing. She had revealed Huanxi Manor's biggest secret. Zhang Xiaohua followed Qiu Tong into the inner room, leaving Elder Yu sitting on the chair and reading the sword manual. Inside the room, Oyan was still lying there quietly. Just as Qiu Tong had said, Oyan's complexion had changed a little. Her face was slightly red, a sign that her qi and blood were flourishing. Wherever her divine sense went, life was still flowing away. However, it was as subtle and slow as yesterday. It was completely different from when Zhang Xiaohua had first seen it. It seems that the situation is very stable. Only after refining the spirit awakening pill can it be consumed. There shouldn't be any big problems, Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself. However, the refinement of the spirit awakening pill was the same as the meridian nourishing pill and the bone solidifying pill. They all required around 10 days. It was a little too early to be anxious now. After chatting with Qiu Tong for a while, Zhang Xiaohua said goodbye to the two. However, as soon as he got out of the courtyard, he saw that there seemed to be someone peeping at him from the side of a huge mountain rock above the manor. It was no secret that Oyan's courtyard was protected by the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak. However, their disciples were all brazen about it. Who would have any scruples about it? Look at the east side of the courtyard. There were 2 rather bored disciples holding long swords in their hands. They were patrolling while whispering to each other. The true disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak wouldn't even take a second look at this courtyard. After all, they had been guarding it for so many years. Who would be patient enough to fulfill their duties? Therefore, the fact that the disciples behind the mountain rock were staring at it so intently was very thought-provoking. It was also because Zhang Xiaohua's senses were now very sensitive. She had sensed something the moment she stepped out of the house. Thus, she made a hand seal and went behind the mountain rock. She quietly poked her head out to see what this person was planning to do. This person was wearing the uniform of a disciple from Ethereal Hall. She couldn't see his face clearly from the back, but his figure seemed to be around 30 years old. A disciple from Ethereal Hall? Zhang Xiaohua frowned. What is this person doing here? Could it be that Yang Rupiang sent him? Is he afraid of being discovered by the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak? However, it shouldn't be that bad. If Yang Rupiang wants to understand Oyan's condition, she only needs to make a trip personally. How can the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak stop her? Besides, from what elder sister Qiu Tong said, Oyan doesn't intend to tell Yang Rupiang about this matter. Yang Rupiang can't possibly know about it. Just as Zhang Xiaohua was thinking, she saw the disciple mumbling something. He retracted his head from the crack of the mountain rock and took out a pen and paper. He laid it on the ground and casually wrote something. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua could already see the person's face clearly. However, no matter how she looked, it was a stranger. She didn't have any impression of him. Now that she saw the person writing something, she unconsciously released her divine sense to read it. Uft! When Zhang Xiaohua saw it, she almost laughed out loud. She covered her mouth with great difficulty. Who is it? After all, there was some movement. That disciple seemed to be alert and raised his head to berate. However, his voice was extremely soft. From the looks of it, he was afraid of alerting the patrolling disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak. That disciple listened for a long time and looked around. When he didn't see anyone, he hurriedly wrote something down. Then he actually executed his lightness skill and headed towards the peak of the mountain. Zhang Xiaohua naturally followed. Seeing that they had arrived at a barren land, that disciple stopped and jumped onto a big tree. Not long after, he jumped down and looked left and right to see that there was no one around. In a flash, he followed the mountain path down. When that disciple was far away, Zhang Xiaohua's head popped out from the ground. She frowned as she looked at that person's back view. She seemed to be deep in thought. Needless to say, this person was definitely not instructed by Yang Ruping. But who could it be? Zhang Xiaohua also jumped onto the tree and took out that piece of paper from a crack in the tree. On the paper, there was a crooked handwriting that was even uglier than Zhang Xiaohua's crab handwriting. However, with Zhang Xiaohua's Shuowenjiezi enlightenment knowledge, she couldn't decipher what was written on this piece of paper even after reading a whole packet of cigarettes. It seemed to be handwriting, and also seemed to be drawing talismans. In short, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't decipher anything. Releasing her divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua took a closer look. There wasn't anything unusual. She couldn't decipher anything from this ordinary piece of paper. Zhang Xiaohua could only put it back into the crack in the tree. From the place where this disciple was observing, it should be about Yan's illness. This should also be written about this. Since it's not Yang Ruping, then it definitely isn't the grand leader of Lingering Fragrance Peak. Then, could it be another power that's competing with the grand leader? If that's the case, then it's troublesome. Yan's illness might be caused by these people. It seems that I have to prepare for both sides. The spirit awakening pill needs to be refined. If I can find out who's behind this and obtain the antidote, then Yan might be saved. After making up her mind, Zhang Xiaohua turned invisible and waited at the side. However, after waiting for a long time, no one came back. Looking at the sky and thinking about what happened in her alchemy room, Zhang Xiaohua immediately returned to the alchemy room. First, she saw that there wasn't anything wrong with the alchemy furnace in the alchemy room. Zhang Xiaohua flew down the mountain. After flying for a while, she saw a few young disciples in the originally barren herb field. Under the guidance of a few older disciples, they were plowing the ground and pulling out the weeds. Could it be that what I said yesterday was effective? Zhang Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised. Unknowingly, she revealed herself and pretended to be out of breath as she descended the mountain. Who are you? A disciple heard the heavy footsteps and immediately asked. Hearing that someone was coming, all the disciples raised their heads. When they saw that it was Zhang Xiaohua, a few of the younger disciples cheered and jumped out, shouting, "Senior!" Run! As he shouted, his eyes drifted towards the few older disciples. Seeing this, one of the older disciples stepped forward and frowned. Are you Ren Xiaoyao? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and bowed. Yes, I am. Greetings, senior brother from the ethereal hall. That disciple returned the greeting and said, Well said, well said. I wonder why a disciple on duty of the pill-expanding hall, like you, are running around the mountain. Do you not have any respect for the ethereal hall? When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she took out the token of the pill-expanding hall and raised it. I am under the orders of the hall master. Firstly, I am in charge of the transaction of elixirs and herbs. Secondly, I am in charge of guiding the disciples of the ethereal hall in planting herbs. If I only stayed in the courtyard, how would I know the situation of the ethereal hall's herbs? How would I know that these herb fields are barren? That disciple was at a loss for words. The disciples on duty of the pill-expanding hall were in charge of this, but the previous disciples of the pill-expanding hall were already hiding from the disciples of the ethereal hall, who would guide them in planting herbs. At this moment, a young disciple ran over and smiled. Senior brother Hu, I have already said that Senior brother Ren is very different from the previous ruffians. Do you believe me now that you have seen it? Humph. Senior brother Hu snorted. Is what you said to the other junior brothers yesterday true? You want us to make the decisions for future transactions? You want us to do whatever we say? Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, Of course. A gentleman's words cannot be taken back. Then she changed the topic. Of course, if you do something to harm the pill-expanding hall, that is also not allowed. Good. Senior brother Hu said. I will remember what you said today. If you are not willing to do so in the future, then don't blame us for challenging you in martial arts. Ha! Zhang Xiaohua laughed. Not to mention in the future. Even if you challenge me today, I will be happy to accompany you. But before you go, you must be prepared. If you lose to me, you will be my junior brother in the future. I still want this face. You senior brother who was at a loss for words. Another senior disciple next to him cupped his hands and said, We have heard of junior brother Ren's martial arts. Don't worry, our ethereal hall is not short of men who keep their promises. If we challenge you to a duel, we will naturally have to admit defeat if we lose. But since we met here today, I have a question to ask. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and said, Senior brother, please enlighten me. Well, yesterday you asked all the junior brothers to come back and replant the herbs. I want to ask you, what kind of herbs are good to plant in this barren herb field? Zhang Xiaohua looked up and said with a smile, This herb field used to be the most fertile one in our pill-expanding hall. Now you can plant anything. But I think you should plant some herbs that the ethereal hall lacks the most. It must be the blood-brown grass for the blood-replenishing pill. I don't need to tell you the formula of this pill. Blood-replenishing pill? Senior brother Hu was shocked and said, Do you mean that you will exchange the herbs we plant for the pills? Zhang Xiaohua looked at him with a smile and said, Why not? You don't play with us, Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. Why would I play with you? What's the point? Then he said sincerely, Your hall's Zhang Xiaohu, senior brother Zhang, is the person I respect the most. It was he who rescued me from the Yulon Grand Canyon. My life was given by senior brother Zhang. Do you think I will treat his junior brother badly? I am telling you this because of senior brother Zhang's face. If you don't believe me, then I can't do anything about it. After saying that, he cupped his fists and went down the mountain. After he passed by, senior brother Hu looked at Zhang Xiaohua's back for a long time. Senior brother Hu, can we believe this guy? Senior brother Hu, are we still going to work? Senior brother Hu looked back and said with a smile, Of course we are going to do it. Not only this land, we are going to replant all the barren land. It seems that you believe this Ren Xiaoyao? Senior brother Hu shook his head and said, He is just a disciple on duty of the Pill Repository Hall. I don't believe him. I just know that as long as senior brother Zhang is here, this guy will not do anything to betray the Misty Hall. As long as we do as he says, whether we can exchange for the elixirs we are most short of will depend on senior brother Zhang's face. Zhang Xiaohua's simple words immediately highlighted Zhang Xiaohu's role. It had to be said that Zhang Xiaohua's painstaking efforts were painstakingly made. Zhang Xiaohua hummed a small tune. Sister, you sit at the bow, brother, I walk on the shore, and came down the Shirxin peak. When she came to the mountainside, the traces of the Misty Hall's disciples also increased. However, Zhang Xiaohua, who had always been quick and sensitive, suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable. It seemed that many people were staring at her, but this feeling was just uncomfortable, and there was no dangerous information. Hey, what's going on? Zhang Xiaohua secretly tried to figure it out, but also released her divine sense to secretly observe. After walking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua found that those who were staring at her were all the female disciples of the Misty Hall, who were in the prime of their youth. Could it be that they think I'm handsome and want to give me spinach? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but feel proud. This kind of opportunity to enjoy the attention was rare. While she was thinking, a slightly plump female disciple came forward and asked somewhat embarrassedly, Is that Ren Xiaorao from the Pill Repository Hall, senior brother Ren? That voice was coquettish, which made Zhang Xiaohua's hair stand on end and goosebumps all over her body. She immediately stopped and saluted. Yes, I am. May I know what this lady wants? You're so annoying. You're obviously a senior brother, but you still act like a scholar. The female disciple said shyly. But I like it. The disciples of the Misty Hall are all strong and powerful. It's rare to see a weak scholar like senior brother. After hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua's hair stood on end like thorns. She quickly said, I don't dare. Thank you, junior sister, for the compliment. May I know why junior sister stopped me halfway? My surname is Xiao and my name is Tian. You can call me Xiao Tian. Zhang Xiaohua shivered and said, And junior sister Xiao, it's indeed a good name. However, this name is more romantic under the moonlight. In front of so many people, it's better to call you junior sister. Bah! Xiao Tian spat. You're so bad. What do you mean by this, is it? Xiao Tian's face immediately turned red. Faint, Zhang Xiaohua secretly ordered herself. Unfortunately, the Dan core in her Naiwan palace did not seem to obey and continued to sway slightly. She was full of energy. Cough cough, Zhang Xiaohua coughed twice and said, Junior sister Xiao, after talking for so long, I still don't know why junior sister Xiao is looking for me? Call me Xiao Tian, or I won't tell you. Xiao Tian laughed lightly. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Chapter 754. That. Xiao Tian. Zhang Xiaohua resisted the urge to beat people up and shouted out this name. It was not that this female disciple was not good-looking, nor was it that this female disciple's figure was not good, nor was it that. Cough cough, in short, this name made Zhang Xiaohua feel very uncomfortable. Ai, Xiao Tian replied sweetly and dragged out her voice. Senior brother Ren, your voice sounds really nice. None of the male disciples in the Misty Hall have such a good voice. Even the opera singers that I heard before did not sound as good as yours. You should really go and act. I'm going to faint. Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. Yesterday, Zhang Xiaohua advised her to go and act. This. Xiao Tian actually also advised her to go and act. Could it be that she really had the potential to act? Was there no possibility of developing in the immortal Tao? Zhang Xiaohua pinched her chin and laughed. People have said before that acting requires a good appearance. There's no need to be afraid of not having any acting skills. As long as you have a good face and put it on the stage, crying and laughing, and then let people praise you from below the stage, anyone would become popular. Junior sister Xiao, do you think I can do it? Call me Xiao Tian. Xiao Tian smiled sweetly and said, Senior brother Ren is the most stylish. I'll be your nose, your eyes, the role that you play. No one else can play. Really? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised and asked, What role is that? It's the one who painted the white square on his nose. What's that corner? It's that, is it? The one who is short and jumps on the stage, jumping up and down? Zhang Xiaohua asked unhappily. When Xiao Tian saw that Zhang Xiaohua's face was a little ugly, she immediately changed her tone and said, How could that be? Senior brother Ren's figure is tall and sturdy, handsome and confident. If you want to act, it's also forget it. Zhang Xiaohua lost her patience and waved her hand. Junior sister Xiao, after dilly-dallying for so long, I think it's time for you to get to the point. May I know what business you have with me? Oh, look at you, senior brother Ren. Can't junior sister talk to senior brother if there's nothing important? Oh, I forgot that there's still ginger soup simmering on the fire in my courtyard. I'll listen to you after I'm done sweating and my head is no longer dizzy. Zhang Xiaohua made a gesture of wanting to leave. Don't, senior brother Ren. Actually, I really have something to ask of you. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Xiao Tian who was twisting Nini and acting pretentious. She almost had a convulsion in her heart. She forcefully cupped her hands and said, If it's the matter of exchanging medicinal herbs for medicinal pills, I have already spoken to the young disciples of your noble hall. This kind of matter is not easy to formally negotiate with Hall Master Yang. Everyone should be well aware of it. But looking at Xiao Tian's puzzled expression, he frowned and said, Oh, if junior sister Xiao is not here for this matter, could it be that you want to ask me for some pills first? If you're really injured, then I can lend you some blood replenishing pills and other items. However, You have to exchange them for medicinal herbs and other items. Really? Xiao Tiantian's face lit up with joy. Can all your pills be exchanged for those things? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She was a little confused. How did Xiao Tiantian know what kind of pills she had? But she had already said it. She could only brace herself and say, "Of course, but it must be something of equal value." That's great. What kind of things do you need to exchange for your beauty elixir? Beauty elixir? Elixir? Zhang Xiaohua said gloomily. What do you mean beauty elixir? I don't even know the meaning of this sentence. Where did the elixir come from? Did junior sister Xiao find the wrong person? I knew that senior brother Run would reject people 1,000 miles away. That's why I was so thick-skinned and talked to you for so long. But I didn't expect that you would call me Xiao Tiantian just now. In the blink of an eye, you don't recognize me and call me junior sister Xiao. Zhang Xiaohua's scalp went numb. She waved her hand with all her might. Really, Xiao Tiantian, I really don't understand. Can you first explain to me what beauty elixir is? Senior brother, you're such a wise and brilliant person. How can you not understand all of a sudden? This beauty elixir is naturally the meaning of a beautiful face. Zhang Xiaohua almost cried out. In addition to that elixir, he almost guessed something. Sure enough, he heard Xiao Tiantian say, "My beloved senior brother, did you think of something? Could it be that girl Chen Chen?" Zhang Xiaohua was almost certain. That's right. Look at how affectionate senior brother is calling her. She's still a girl. Xiao Tiantian was very jealous and said, "A few days ago, senior sister Chen Chen was still shouting in front of junior sister that there were lumps on her face, but last night, her face was so smooth that a fly could fall on it. Moreover, her face was not as white as junior sister's, but when I looked at it again, it was actually, she was almost as white as junior sister's. Junior sister has always boasted that she is a pear blossom suppressing a begonia, and is proud of the white and the red, but I was actually defeated by senior sister Chen. Tell me, isn't this infuriating?" Zhang Xiaohua opened her mouth wide. She almost wanted to say, "Junior sister, the phrase a pear blossom suppressing a begonia isn't used like that, right?" But thinking about it, she probably couldn't explain it to her, so she swallowed it back down. Suppressing his anger, he wanted to explain something, but he heard Xiao Tiantian say like a swift sword. "Thus I thought of all sorts of ways to ask senior sister Chen for the reason. I've been grinding for an entire day, and just now, I found out from her mouth that it was actually senior brother Ren who gave her the miraculous medicine." Then, she threw out an autumn wave and said, "Could it be that senior brother Ren saw the lumps on junior sister's face so rampant? Could it be that senior brother Ren doesn't want to show unity and love? Could it be that senior brother Ren doesn't know how to have tender feelings for the fairer sex?" The three consecutive "could it be" made Zhang Xiaohua feel extremely sad in her heart. She smiled and said, "This Chen Chen, I have already told her many times that this is a secret of mine. Beauty, whatever face elixir, there isn't much of it and I still want to use it. If others knew about it, would I still use it? It's true, junior sister Xiao. Look at my face. It used to have a lot of wrinkles. Even my eyes were a lot smaller than they are now. It's because I've been using this pill elixir that the wrinkles on my face disappeared, and my eyes became bigger. Alas, the only regret is that this pill elixir can't make my nose bulge. Otherwise I would really be handsome." "Really?" Xiao Tiantian's eyes widened infinitely. She didn't forget to praise Zhang Xiaohua. "Senior brother Ren is already extraordinarily handsome. If your nose is a little higher, do you still want the male disciples of the Misty Hall to live? Do you think it's good that people are jealous of your handsomeness and deliberately avoid you every day? Well, it's not very good. Then it's a little lonely to be handsome. It's better to be close to the people." Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and said seriously, "So senior brother Ren, it's better for you to give me some of your elixir for beauty." Sigh, after talking for half a day, they finally got to the point. This Zhang Xiaohua said in surprise. "This elixir is extremely precious. I felt bad when I gave it to Chen Chen the day before yesterday. This is my secret. Now that you're giving it to me and I'm giving it to you, Won't it become a secret that everyone in Shishing Peak knows? Yes, senior brother Ren. Why else would I be waiting for you here? Waiting for me here? Zhang Xiaohua pointed to her nose and said. Have you been waiting for a long time? Not too long ago. It's just that the door of your pill repository hall's courtyard wasn't open. I thought you must have gone up the mountain, so... Oh, senior marshal brother. How much do you think you should exchange for that bottle of beauty elixir? I also have some elixirs. This Zhang Xiaohua was a little hesitant and said with difficulty. Our pill-expanding hall has never lacked elixirs. You see, as he spoke, he looked towards Xiao Tiantian's head. Xiao Tiantian was taken aback. She gritted her teeth and removed the golden hairpin from her hair. Handing it over, she said, This little sister doesn't have anything good. This was left behind by my late mother. It should be worth a few silvers. I'll use this to exchange with senior brother. Oh, isn't that bad? Zhang Xiaohua said, but her eyes were fixed on it. Haha, Xiao Tiantian forced a smile. It's nothing, it's just a memento. It's worth it to exchange it for a beautiful and youthful whitening. After speaking, she forcefully stuffed it into Zhang Xiaohua's hands. Zhang Xiaohua pinched it fondly and returned it. How about this, junior sister Xiao? I don't have the elixir with me. You can take the jade bottle and follow me to the small courtyard of the pill-expanding hall. Oh, forget it. Let's go to your Misty Hall's territory. Yes, your senior brother Zhang's courtyard. How about this? We'll have a fair trade. Let your senior brother Zhang be the witness. Don't say that I'm blindly bidding just because I have the elixir. No, senior brother Ren is the fairest. I'm willing to do it. Xiao Tiantian smiled and said. Then it's a deal. I'll go get the jade bottle and meet you in senior brother Zhang's courtyard. Okay. Zhang Xiaohua was also happy. Thus, the two of them went their separate ways. Zhang Xiaohua naturally didn't need to return to the small courtyard of the pill-expanding hall. As she walked towards Zhang Xiaohu's residence, she was secretly delighted. I didn't expect that the female disciples of this misty school are also women. As the ancient saying goes, a woman's copper coin is the best. As long as it's related to face, no matter if it's rouge, face powder, or a whitening elixir, they will go crazy. A few days ago, I was still feeling sorry for the 10,000-year-old sky stalactite milk, and thought that it was a waste to bathe second brother. Now I've found a reason not to waste it. This person's character is too good. As Zhang Xiaohua thought about it, she walked into Zhang Xiaohu's courtyard and saw Zhang Xiaohu walking slowly in the courtyard. He was probably stretching his muscles. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua walking in, he couldn't help but smile. Why are you so happy? Could it be that something good has happened? Of course it's a happy occasion. When Zhang Xiaohu heard this, he also stopped and said, Quickly say, what's the good news? Haha, you're going to be rich. Chapter 755. I'm going to be rich? Zhang Xiaohu was baffled and said, How come I don't know? Besides, I'm going to be rich. Why are you so happy? Zhang Xiaohua ignored him. Seeing that there was no one in the courtyard, she flashed into the place where Zhang Xiaohu used to bathe. Not bad. The wooden bucket filled with bath water was still placed in the corner. There was still a faint fragrance coming from the wooden bucket. Knowing that Xiao Tiantian would come over soon, Zhang Xiaohua didn't delay. She reached out and took out a few empty jade bottles. She pointed her finger and a seal was cast. Some water was absorbed into the jade bottles, and the whitening elixir was completed. Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense and happily scanned the elixir in the jade bottles. Her heart still ached. Although the majority of the elixir was water and wasn't worth mentioning, the tiny amount of heaven stalactite emitted a kind of spiritual energy that was very similar to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. If she exchanged it with a golden hairpin, it wasn't worth it. AI, who asked me to be a person who has tender feelings for the fairer sex. Zhang Xiaohua found an explanation for herself. Immediately, she put the jade bottles filled with whitening elixir into her bosom. Looking at the bucket full of whitening elixir, Zhang Xiaohua extended her hand and put it into her belt. The secret of exclusive management was to make the source of things mysterious. Zhang Xiaohua learned this by herself. seeing Zhang Xiaohua come out empty-handed. Zhang Xiaohu was very puzzled and asked, "Why did you go to the room where I bathe? What else could there be besides bath water?" "Oh, I listened to you and never poured the water." Just as they were talking, they heard hurried footsteps outside the door. It seemed that there was more than one person. Zhang Xiaohua said to Zhang Xiaohu, "Second brother, look, business is here." As she spoke, she stuffed the few jade bottles in her bosom into Zhang Xiaohu's bosom. What's going on?" Zhang Xiaohu reached out to take out the jade bottles, but at this moment, someone knocked on the door. Zhang Xiaohu glared at Zhang Xiaohua. He stretched out his empty hand from his bosom and said loudly, "Who is it? Come in." The courtyard door was pushed open, and not only was Xiao Tiantian gasping for breath, there was also a slightly plump female disciple following behind her. This female disciple's figure was passable, but there were many red spots on her face. When the two of them came in, they bowed and said, "Greetings, senior brother Zhang." When Zhang Xiaohu saw the two of them, he was very surprised and said, "Junior Marshal Sister Xiao. Junior Sister Yi? What are you doing here?" Although Zhang Xiaohu was a direct disciple of the Misty School, he was a male disciple after all. Usually, only Chang'e and Chen Chen came to his small courtyard. Among the female disciples of Yuan Mingsui Hall, only Chang'e and Chen Chen often came. Junior sisters like Xiao Tiantian had never come in. Xiao Tiantian was also embarrassed and said with a smile, "I have some matters to discuss with senior brother Ren." As she said that, she said to Zhang Xiaohua, "Senior brother Ren, I have brought the jade bottles." But as she said that, she turned to look at Junior Marshal Sister Yi and said apologetically, "But when I came here just now, I met Junior Marshal Sister Yi. She also insisted on coming." Zhang Xiaohu was very surprised and asked, "Junior brother Ren, what kind of play are you singing? How did you get in touch with a disciple of my Misty Hall? What matter do you have that you want to discuss with me here?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled apologetically and said, "Senior brother Zhang, it's like this. I originally had a business to discuss with Junior Marshal Sister Xiao, and wanted you to be the witness, so that she wouldn't regret it in the future, and look for me to settle old scores. But Junior Marshal Sister Xiao actually brought another person over. Then, this business will make things difficult for me. Senior brother Ren, we've already discussed it, how can you go back on your word?" Xiao Tian said anxiously. "But I only have one bottle left. Junior Marshal Sister Yi also came, and I think she needs this more. Aren't you making things difficult for me?" Zhang Xiaohua said shamelessly. Hearing that, Junior Marshal Sister Yi's face was filled with joy and said, "That's great, Senior brother Ren. I knew you were a good person. I will remember your kindness in the future." Zhang Xiaohua rolled his eyes and thought to himself, "What good will it do me if you work like an ox or a horse to remember my good deeds?" Following that, she rubbed her thumb and index finger together. Junior Marshal Sister Yi came to her senses and took out a small cloth bag from her bosom. She handed it over and said, "Senior brother Ren, this is a little something from me. Please accept it, Junior Marshal Sister Yi." Yu Xiao Tian was furious. She pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Senior Marshal brother Ren, I came first. I also told you in advance. You actually turned your back on me?" Zhang Xiaohua shrugged and said, "But I didn't receive any deposit from you. It's just empty words. You can't say anything about me, right?" Yu Xiao Tian was about to cry. She gritted her teeth and took out a small satin bag from her bosom. She said, "This is," without waiting for her to finish speaking. Zhang Xiaohu said angrily, "All of you stop." Then he turned to Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Junior brother Ren, if you want me to be a notary, you have to tell me the whole story first. Otherwise, if my two junior marshal sisters of the Misty Hall are fighting here, and I, as their senior marshal brother, am unable to help them, how can I be a notary? How can I still be a senior marshal brother?" When he said this, Xiao Tian and junior marshal sister Yi felt warmth in their hearts. They had never thought that this so-called senior marshal brother, who they had always looked down on, would have such a protective side. Thus, they remained silent. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she didn't feel embarrassed. She stammered, "This senior marshal brother Zhang, I just want you to do justice. Can you just watch and don't say anything? Zhang Xiaohu shook his head. That won't do. These two are my junior martial sisters. That means they are my family. If I don't understand something, I definitely won't be your notary. Zhang Xiaohua said angrily. Then forget it. Since you don't want to be a notary, then don't do it. We won't let you do it, okay? I'll go find someone else. Xiao Tiantian and junior martial sister Yi were anxious and wanted to say something. Zhang Xiaohu took a step forward and stood in front of them. He said righteously, no. Since you're already here and want to make a deal with my two junior martial sisters, I already know about this matter. Since I already know about it, I can't just ignore it. Tell me what's the matter. What deal? Looking at the way you're waiting for a good price, it doesn't look like a clean deal. Although Zhang Xiaohu didn't know what Zhang Xiaohua was up to, he saw his two junior martial sisters arguing. Of course, he felt uncomfortable. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua acting suspiciously, he felt that there was something fishy going on. Who was Zhang Xiaohua? He was his biological younger brother. He had brought him up since he was young. Even if he scolded or hit him, Zhang Xiaohua wouldn't dare to fight back. This mere reprimand with righteous words was a piece of cake. This Zhang Xiaohua's face revealed a difficult expression. She hesitated for a moment and refused to say more. Zhang Xiaohu frowned. In front of outsiders, he could only treat Zhang Xiaohua as a disciple of the Pill Tower Hall. He didn't want to force her to say anything. He only turned his head and said, Junior martial sister Xiao, tell me what's going on? Xiao Tiantian looked at the dejected Zhang Xiaohua and was also puzzled. Then, she angrily recounted what happened just now. Finally, she said, this guy said it nicely. He wants senior martial brother Zhang to be fair, so that I won't regret it in the future. But, now he wants me to compete with junior martial sister Yi to raise the price. Tell me, isn't he too hateful? It's better to let the senior martial brothers break his arms and legs. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. He unconsciously looked at Zhang Xiaohua again. Zhang Xiaohua slightly blinked at him. Her left hand stroked the front of her clothes. Zhang Xiaohu was shocked. He thought of the jade bottle that Zhang Xiaohua stuffed into his arms just now. His right hand naturally took out 2 bottles from his arms. Then he opened the lid and brought it to his nose to smell. Isn't this the bathwater from a few days ago? Zhang Xiaohu was naturally very familiar with this smell. He couldn't help but be puzzled. Xiao Tiantian at the side was stunned at first. Then, she smelled the fragrance inside and immediately became excited. She said, Senior martial brother Zhang, why do you also have this whitening elixir? This is the whitening elixir that you mentioned just now? Zhang Xiaohu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yes, this is it. When senior martial sister Chen Chen used it, I personally smelled it. Zhang Xiaohu raised his head and fiercely glared at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua was as honest as a shy old hen, standing there with a red face. Is this senior martial brother Zhang's jade bottle? Junior martial sister Yi at the side asked tentatively. Of course it's mine. Zhang Xiaohu said without hesitation. Nonsense. What was taken out from his arms was naturally his, although it was forced by others. Then can you exchange with me? Senior martial brother Zhang? Xiao Tiantian coquettishly handed over the golden jade in her hand. Exchange? Zhang Xiaohu was even more surprised. It was just his bathwater, but he could actually exchange it for a golden hairpin and a jade artifact. Immediately, Zhang Xiaohu remembered what Zhang Xiaohua meant when she rushed into the courtyard and said, I'm rich. Why should I exchange? Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. The disappointment on Xiao Tiantian and junior martial sister Yi's faces was obvious. Zhang Xiaohu changed the topic and said, What's the harm in giving it to you? But in his heart he said, It's just bathwater. Really? Senior martial brother Zhang, you really want to give it to us? Xiao Tiantian was pleasantly surprised. Junior martial sister Yi also said, Senior martial brother Zhang, you might not know, but this magical elixir makes senior martial sister Chen Chen look much younger. Zhang Xiaohu's face was indifferent. I know, what don't I know? But no matter how precious it is, as long as my junior martial sister wants it, I will give it to her. Here, take it, 1 bottle each. The two of them received the 2 jade bottles and were wild with joy. They bowed and said, "Thank you, Senior Marshal Brother Zhang." "It's nothing, don't worry about it." Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand, then looked at the silent Zhang Xiaohua and said, "If there's anything in the future, come and find me, your Senior Marshal Brother. As for the others, it's better not to believe too much." "That's right, if we knew that Senior Marshal Brother Zhang had good things here, we would have come long ago. Who would look for others?" "Oh, right, Senior Marshal Brother Zhang, do you still have these elixirs? Many people know about Senior Marshal Sister Chen Chen. They might come too." Yes, let them come." Zhang Xiaohu chuckled, but in his mind, the huge wooden barrel of his bath appeared calm. Chapter 756. Not to mention how high Senior Brother Zhang had become in the hearts of Xiao Tiantian and Junior Sister Yi. Just as the two of them were thanking him profusely and leaving the small courtyard, they heard them say from outside the door, "Greetings, Senior Sister Chang'e and Senior Sister Chen Chen." Well, the regulars of Zhang Xiaohu's small courtyard had come. When Zhang Xiaohu heard the sound, he didn't have time to ask Zhang Xiaohua in detail, and slowly walked to the door. At this time, outside the small courtyard, Xiao Tiantian and Junior Sister Yi had already roughly explained the matter. Then, they pursed their lips and looked back at Zhang Xiaohu, who had just walked out of the small courtyard. They ran away happily while laughing. Chang'e and Chen Chen were also baffled. Seeing that there was no one around, they immediately asked, "Xiaohu, what's going on?" According to Chen Chen, wasn't this elixir given to her by Xiaohua? How did it suddenly become yours? Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly and said, "I also don't know what's going on. Just now, Xiaohua gave me a few jade bottles as soon as she entered the courtyard, and then the 2 junior sisters came. I just wanted to ask Xiaohua the reason, and you came." "Xiaohua here with you? Oh, that's great," Chang'e said as she rushed into the courtyard. "Are you kidding me, Chang'e? I'm the patient. Didn't you come here to visit me?" Zhang Xiaohu shouted very miserably behind her. Chen Chen didn't follow closely this time. She supported Zhang Xiaohu and said, "Senior brother, don't blame Senior Sister. She's anxious." "What's your Senior Sister anxious about?" Zhang Xiaohu was quite puzzled. Senior brother doesn't know that after I used the elixir given to me by Zhang Xiaohua last time, the effect was surprisingly good. As a result, it was noticed by the other junior sisters. The pimples on my face. I don't know if Senior brother, you guys don't have these things on your faces, but most of us female disciples have them. Although it's not a big deal, isn't it not too beautiful? Moreover, when I applied the magical elixir to my face yesterday, they actually said that I looked much younger. Do you think that they wouldn't go crazy? Junior Sister Xiao is quite straightforward. She kept asking me. In the end, I had no choice but to tell her that it was given to her by Ren Xiaorao of the Tuodo Hall. So she directly went to Zhang Xiaohua. As for the other junior sisters, they feel that they don't have a good relationship with the Pill Repository Hall, and are afraid of being rebuffed. They only think of you, Senior Marshal Brother, as his savior. Other people's faces might not work, but your face will definitely work. Of course, many of them have met you once, but they all know that Senior Sister Chang'e often looks at you. So since last night, many junior sisters have tried every means to talk to Senior Sister Chang'e. Senior brother. You don't know that in our Mingsue Hall, Senior Sister Xiao was outstanding, and even Senior Sister Chang'e couldn't compare with her. Today, Senior Sister Chang'e's popularity has increased. After listening to Chen Chen's explanation, the two slowly walked back to the small courtyard. Zhang Xiaohu was happy for Chang'e's situation, but at the same time he was a little uneasy. He knew best what the whitening elixir was. Thinking that the bathwater was applied to the faces of a group of young and beautiful female disciples. Wasn't this a little too much? Inside the courtyard, Chang'e had also asked. With a face full of admiration he said, "Little flower, how are you so amazing? You can actually refine such a miraculous pill elixir. Previously, when I saw Chang'e wiping it, I didn't pay much attention to it. Looks like I'll have to ask you for some too." Damn, Zhang Xiaohu's face changed color immediately. He stared at Zhang Xiaohua fiercely and said secretly, Refining elixir? I don't know how this guy coaxed Chang'e. Then he immediately stopped her and said, "Don't listen to his nonsense. Chang'e, your skin is so good, and you are so young and beautiful. You don't need this at all." Chang'e said angrily, "Won't I grow old in the future? Do you only want others to be beautiful, but not me? Do you want this fertile water to flow to other people's fields? I know you are tired of looking at my face. No way." Zhang Xiaohua next to her was a little stunned. Is this the gentle sister Chang'e? Does this whitening have such a charm for every woman? Zhang Xiaohu surprised Zhang Xiaohua even more. With a fawning look, he said with a smile, "Look at what you said. How can I be like what you said? I am just..." At this point, he didn't know how to explain. He said in his heart, "You are right. It's just some fertile water. It's not a pity that it flows. But if I let you apply it on your face, then he stared at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, you say it." With this glare and scolding, Chang'e couldn't take it anymore and said, "You're still blaming Little Blossom? Look at what you've done, and look at what Little Blossom has done. I don't think you're acting like an older brother at all." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he lowered his head and stood at the side obediently. He looked like a wronged little wife who had been bullied. What did I do?" Zhang Xiaohu widened his eyes and was very puzzled. Didn't you see how much Xiaohua did for you?" Chang'e was quite disappointed and said, "Xiaohua worked hard to refine the precious elixir liquid. In order to accumulate popularity for you, he gave it away so easily. You didn't even say a word of thanks, and, well, even if Xiaohua is your brother, it's fine if you don't thank him. How can you talk to him in such a tone? Is it because you are his brother?" "That's right, senior brother Zhang. Zhang Xiaohua didn't do anything wrong. Why are you so angry?" Chen also helped from the side. After hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu had already understood the meaning of Chang'e. Of course, he also knew why Zhang Xiaohua stuffed the jade bottle into his arms and deliberately made things difficult for Xiao Tiantian and junior sister Yi. However, this magical whitening elixir liquid was not the elixir liquid that Zhang Xiaohua worked hard to refine, but the bathwater that he used every day before. Zhang Xiaohu pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and didn't say anything for a long time. Yes, how could he dare to say anything about the bathwater? Moreover, this was also his brother's painstaking effort. It could establish his prestige among the female disciples, and it would also be of great help to him when he became the chief disciple in the future. And there was also Chang'e. He heard that she was also very popular now. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua whispered, "Sister Chang'e, this is also my fault. This thing was originally a secret. When I saw the pimples on Chen's face that day, I gave it to her to use. I didn't know the effect inside was so good, and my second brother didn't know either. Today's matter was also because I met Xiao Tiantian outside. She tried to get close to me. At first, I didn't understand what was going on. The matter of asking my second brother to come forward was also a temporary idea. I didn't explain it to him yet, but she came to him. It's normal for him to blame me." After hearing this, Chang'e's face eased and she smiled. Xiaohua is sensible and always thinks about her brother. Then she said to Zhang Xiaohu, "You should learn more from Xiaohua in the future. She is much younger than you and knows a lot of things. You will be the chief disciple in the future. You can't lose face for me for us." "That's right. Just now, I heard Xiao Tiantian and junior sister Yi call my second brother senior brother Zhang." Zhang Xiaohua said timely. Really?" Chang'e and Chen asked with a smile. "Well, there is such a thing. I didn't expect it." Zhang Xiaohu at this time also lowered his eyebrows and looked like a little wife. Chang'e didn't know whether she was satisfied with Zhang Xiaohu's attitude, or with others calling Zhang Xiaohu senior brother Zhang. Her face was bright like spring flowers and she said, Well, you have some achievements." Then she said to Zhang Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, how many elixir liquids do you have? You don't know that these two junior sisters have been looking for me like crazy." "It's all Chen's fault. Can't you just say nothing?" Chen also looked aggrieved. She stood beside Zhang Xiaohu and didn't speak. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Sister Chang'e has wronged Chen. If she didn't leak it out, How could my second brother have such an opportunity? Hee, this is also God helping my second brother. Hee, Xiaohua's mouth is really sweet. Don't praise me, Sister Chang'e. I will be proud. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, by the way, although there is not much elixir liquid, there is still a lot. If it is distributed evenly, it should be enough for each disciple of Mingsui Hall. So much. Chang'e was stunned. Hee, there is only so much of it. There won't be any more in the future. I don't have any left. I might as well give it all to my second brother at once. Oh no, just give it to Sister Chang'e. Second brother will owe me a big favor. Okay. Chang'e smiled and said, I will go back and find some jade bottles. Put some elixir liquid in each jade bottle. I will wait and see who is pleasing to the eye and give one to her. Hee, if she is not pleasing to the eye, let her wait. After that, Chang'e and Chun left hand in hand with a smile. It must have been a long time since they were so elated. After the two left, Zhang Xiaohu stared at Zhang Xiaohua and said, tell me what is going on. Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and said, second brother, didn't second sister-in-law say it clearly just now? Don't you understand? Of course I understand what your second sister-in-law said, but I don't understand what is going on with the elixir liquid you worked so hard to refine. How can you use my bathwater as precious whitening elixir liquid? And you let Chun apply it on her face? Hee, Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, second brother, you don't know. Do you think the bathwater you used is ordinary? This is millennium stalactite. If it were not for this thing, how could your scars heal so quickly? Ah, millennium stalactite? Zhang Xiaohu was also surprised and felt warm in his heart for no reason. He blamed her and said, this is an extremely rare thing in the world. You don't have to waste it like this. I will just keep it for a few more days. How can that be? If it can make second brother recover sooner, it doesn't matter how precious it is. Besides, with this thing, second brother won't have hidden marks all over his body. Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. Chapter 757. Zhang Xiaohua continued. However, the wounds on your body have healed, so the efficacy of the bathwater is still there. One day, I saw Chun say that she had pimples on her face, so I gave her a little. Hee, I didn't expect it to be so effective. But that's also the water I bathed in. How can you let Chun wipe her face? Hee, do you need to be so polite with your junior sister? Well, even if what you said is reasonable, what about now? Zhang Xiaohu was a little helpless. Now all the female disciples in Shishim Peak are crazy. Do I have to let them all wipe my bathwater? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. What's wrong with that? You are the chief disciple. Aren't they all your junior sisters? It's just the difference between one junior sister and many junior sisters. But Zhang Xiaohu said but and didn't know what to say. Anyway, Chun, Xiao Tian, and junior sister Yi had all wiped their faces. Did he still care about hundreds of other junior sisters? Zhang Xiaohua said again. Maybe some of them will wipe it on their bodies. Hee second brother. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Zhang Xiaohua. He really couldn't figure out why he would have such wretched thoughts. He could only criticize, but you're talking about some whitening elixir. Why don't you get some clear water and add a little 10,000-year stalactite? It's better than the real bathwater. Forget it, second brother. Didn't you just say that the millennium stalactite is so precious that you don't even want to use it? Do you think it's appropriate to waste my millennium stalactite just for the glory of the female disciples of Mingsui Hall? Zhang Xiaohua was a little indignant. But you can't lie. Zhang Xiaohu felt that his request was a little too much, so his tone softened a lot. Lie. Zhang Xiaohua sneered. If it's a lie, where are the pimples on Chen's face? If others say she's young, it's even more of a lie. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about you using bathwater to pass off as a pill elixir. Zhang Xiaohu shouted. What you're doing is immoral. Impersonate? Morality? Zhang Xiaohua sneered and said. My bathwater has these magical effects. It's just a change of name. Morality? Needless to say, there are so many people in this world who fish for fame. Why don't I see them talking about morality? Soon after, he looked at the faint floating clouds in the sky. A mocking smile hung at the corner of his mouth as he said, "Perhaps second brother doesn't know. Do you still remember when I was recovering from my injuries at the Lotus Escort Agency?" Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly then said, "Of course I remember. At that time, the bones in your left hand were broken. I was so distressed that I thought you'd be disabled for the rest of your life, not to mention practicing martial arts. But looking at it now, your martial arts. TSK, it's simply unimaginable." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "I'm not talking about this. At that time, when I was lying on the Kong to recuperate, I also followed Li Jinfeng to learn how to write. In order to let me pass the time, young Master Li let me read a lot of books. Oh, I remember. Second brother, I almost forgot to tell you. The Li Yinfeng we saved that year is young Master Li's younger sister. She married sister-in-law's big brother Lu Kai." "Ha, is that so? That's great. Big brother Lu isn't young. It's really not easy to find a suitable wife." Zhang Xiaohu was also happy. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu, who didn't seem to have any other expression. After thinking for a while, she said, "Actually, Li Yinfeng took care of mother and father for a long time in our house because she wanted to wait for you to come back. Did she have any feelings for you before?" "What? Feelings for me?" Zhang Xiaohu pointed at his nose and said in surprise, "Are you sure? I didn't know anything about this." Then he remembered that Zhang Xiaohua said that Li Yinfeng was already married. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and said, "Luckily, she found Lu Kai. It can be considered a match made in heaven. If she waited for me, I don't know how long it would take." Then he said, "You said that young Master Li gave you books to read. Why did it run to his sister's place?" I thought of it so I told you. I wanted to let you know that you also let down a beauty's heart." "Pay," Zhang Xiaohu spat and said, "As if you didn't do it." Zhang Xiaohua sighed and said, "And speaking of the books that young Master Li gave me, there were some foreign customs." Inside there were records of. Zhang Xiaohu's curiosity was also aroused and asked, "What were the records of?" "Speaking of which, it's strange. The books said that there was a place, but I don't know the name. The people there were all smart people who lived in harmony. But after a long time, there were some people who tried to curry favor. In order to make huge profits, they began to think of all ways to earn money." Zhang Xiaohu disagreed. "The ancients said, a gentleman loves money, but he obtains it through the right way. As long as they use the right way to earn it, it's easy to talk about anything. It's a pity. Although they know this principle, they immediately lose their rationality when they encounter another old saying. Laugh at the poor but not at the prostitutes." Zhang Xiaohua sighed and said, "Do you still remember the story that Grandma told us in the past? There was a kind of fish called pufferfish. The taste was very delicious. Some people risked their lives to taste it for the sake of their appetite. Some people died immediately after eating it, but some people ate it and were fine. So in the future, there were more people who continued to risk their lives to taste it because of the possibility of not dying. Perhaps the people there have this kind of idea. Their behavior of earning money is simply unimaginable. For example, in the cornbread that we usually eat, they actually put realgar on the outside in order to look good. Second brother must know about realgar. That's something that even poisonous snakes are afraid of. They actually put it on the outside of the cornbread just to sell it for 2 more copper coins. Impossible, right? How can they joke about people's lives?" Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of disbelief. "What is this? These cornbread are not good cornbread. They are moldy and infested with worms. They also put a kind of poison on the pork that died of the plague. Because when the poison is put on the pork that died of the plague, it will emit a fragrance like that of a cow. Not only can they sell the pig that died of the plague, but they can also sell it for a higher price. What a lunatic. What are these people thinking? Is it just because of the smell of money?" Zhang Xiaohua shook her head. "Also, not only do they harm the adults, they also put a kind of highly poisonous arsenic in a kind of milk and sell it to children who are less than a month old. Because this kind of poison is in the milk, the taste of the milk is more fragrant and can be sold for more copper coins." This Zhang Xiaohu was extremely angry. He slammed his palm down on the tree trunk beside him. Even his fingers were bleeding. If these people are in front of me, I will definitely slap them to death. But Zhang Xiaohua said with a somewhat mocking tone, these people are not just one or two. There are thousands of them, including peddlers, merchants, and even officials. Can you kill them all alone? Moreover, if you kill these people, there will be thousands of people who will step in and do these disgusting things for money. Can you kill them all? This Zhang Xiaohu was at a loss for words. That's not all. It's not like you'll lose your life immediately. It's just that your body will be damaged over time. What's more, just like the pufferfish I mentioned earlier, there's also a type called the swordfish. It's delicious, but it's produced in small quantities. Every year, many people would think of all sorts of ways to inject a heavy poison into the body of the swordfish to increase its weight. Can't they use other things? It will only increase the weight? How can that be? It's just that this poison is cheap. It doesn't cost more than a few copper coins. It's also easy to put it into the fish's stomach. It won't be discovered by others. Once it changes hands, it will be a large amount of silver. It won't be easy to choose other things. Zhang Xiaohu said sadly, human nature has been reduced to a servant of money. Perhaps only the skin on the body can still write one's name. Zhang Xiaohua coughed again. Also, in order to make the rouge and powder sold to women more beautiful, they directly put arsenic into it. The women who buy the rouge can maintain some of their beauty when they are young, but how many of them can survive when they are old? Even if they are alive, they will be terminally ill and on the verge of death. Sometimes, the women there know that there is arsenic in the rouge and powder, but they still use it. They even use the rouge and powder that contains arsenic as a standard of identity. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, I understand what you mean. It's fine as long as you understand what I mean. Second brother, the reason why I use the bathwater to make the elixir is because I don't want to waste this precious stone milk. Think about it. This stone milk that I have is of a genuine value, was able to help you win back the support of hundreds of female disciples in Mingsui Hall. If you can do the same with bathwater that doesn't have the stone milk, would a person who has lost his mind due to the stench of money add this stone milk into the elixir? And by doing this, aren't I more noble than them by 1,000,000 and 1,000 times? Zhang Xiaohu seemed to be moved. After a moment of silence, he said, Oh, what about those people who were harmed by this poison? What was their final fate? If I can help, wouldn't it be? Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and looked at the many white clouds in the sky. Her gaze seemed to pass through countless time and space. She only shook her head and said, There are no records of this in the outer realm. Who knows? Everyone has their own fate. Everyone has their own struggles. Everyone's fate is in their own hands. Anger is not worth it. Sorrow is misfortune. Perhaps we are all worried for the ancient people. We should just live our lives well. Isn't that better than anything else? Puffed. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Zhang Xiaohua's pitiful face and couldn't help but laugh. Xiaohua, after talking for so long and saying so much, isn't it just to cover up the fact that you are passing off fake Israel? Perhaps. Sometimes, if you can do the same thing with a small price, why should you pay a more expensive price? Zhang Xiaohua said leisurely. Chapter 758. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohu sighed. He must have been moved by Zhang Xiaohua's unbelievable experience. He said, All right, since things have already come to this, if you are not willing to take out some stone milk and mix it with clear water, then there is nothing I can do. Just look at how this used bathwater can be exchanged for the favor of the Mingsui Hall's female disciples. I am also quite tempted, let alone those people that you mentioned just now. Hee, Zhang Xiaohua sneered. That's right. This kind of thing is the best way to torture one's conscience. If one is not careful, one's conscience will be obliterated. After a long time, one will not know what conscience is. Zhang Xiaohu rubbed his chest and said, Fortunately, this matter only makes me feel a little uneasy. There is no need to burn my conscience. Then he changed the topic and said worriedly, That's right, there are many female disciples in the Mingsui Hall. Although my wooden bucket is big, 1 bottle per person may not be enough. Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and said, If the wooden bucket is not enough, then use the water jar. Didn't you want to mix it with clear water? Then mix the bathwater with clear water. Then Zhang Xiaohu hesitated. Wouldn't that be going against my conscience even more? Faint, Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. She said helplessly, since I have already lied, why don't I lie to the end? If a few female disciples don't get a share and bear a grudge against you, wouldn't I be doing more harm than good? I might as well not do it. All right, I can only take one step at a time. Zhang Xiaohu helplessly led Zhang Xiaohua to the small kitchen in the courtyard. There were 3 large water jars in the house. They were all filled with water. It seemed that the other disciples who were doing odd jobs had just filled them up. Zhang Xiaohua did not hide it. In front of Zhang Xiaohu, she took out the water bucket from her belt. She evenly distributed the fertilizer used by Zhang Xiaohu to the 3 water jars. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua juggling the water bucket, Zhang Xiaohu was amazed. But when he saw Zhang Xiaohua pouring the bathwater into the water jar, he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. He could only mutter, I have boarded a pirate ship. He forgot to ask how the wooden bucket was taken out. In fact, Zhang Xiaohu knew in his heart that the elixir made by his brother was like this. It was just that he took a bath in the middle. Then, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile, Second brother, I will put this bucket back. Otherwise, if second sister-in-law and Chen Chen see it, I will not be forgiven. As she said, she was ready to go out. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohu, who was standing behind her, asked seriously, Xiaohua, do you think the female disciples of Mingsui Hall will use this whitening elixir on their bodies? Damn it. Zhang Xiaohua immediately fell to the ground. Just now he was hurriedly scolding her, but now he was thinking so much. Zhang Xiaohua got up from the ground. Without looking back, she said in a low voice, It's easy to let them use it. You just have to secretly tell a female disciple that this whitening elixir seems to have the effect of breast enlargement. Hey, Zhang Xiaohu asked curiously. Why do you have to secretly tell a female disciple and say seems to? Zhang Xiaohua stopped in his tracks and turned back. You're whispering to a female disciple. Others will definitely ask about it. Are female disciples the type to keep secrets? The more mysterious and the more they don't want to let others know, the faster it will spread from their mouths. As for the word seems to, it means that you don't know whether this elixir has the effect of breast enlargement. As for whether to try it or not, it's the female disciple's problem. Even if it doesn't work, it has nothing to do with you. After all, you just said seems to, but you aren't very sure. Can the female disciples who hear this sentence resist this possible temptation? Don't worry, as long as you whisper my words, all the female disciples on Shirxin Peak tomorrow will be smeared with your bathwater. After that, she heard hurried footsteps outside the small courtyard. Chang'e and Chen Chen must have returned, so she hurriedly carried the wooden bucket and ran to the house next door, completely ignoring Zhang Xiaohu, who stayed in the kitchen with a thoughtful look on his face. When Zhang Xiaohua came back, Chang'e and Chen Chen had taken a lot of jade bottles and were pouring water into them. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua come in, Chen Chen said with a smile, Zhang Xiaohua, you actually got so much elixir. It must have been hard on you. Chang'e also nodded. That's right. I was afraid that there wouldn't be enough elixir because there are too many female disciples in our Misty Hall. Now it seems that as long as we use it sparingly, each of us can get half a bottle. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand. It's not hard on me. It's Sister Chang'e and Chen Chen who have to work hard. You have to share these. Whitening elixir. That's tiring. Then Zhang Xiaohu blinked and said, By the way, second brother, I have something to tell you. Let Sister Chang'e do it. Don't worry about her. Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. I was about to tell you something, but I almost forgot that you were busy with the elixir as soon as you came in. When Zhang Xiaohua and Zhang Xiaohu returned to the inner room, they heard Zhang Xiaohua say with a smile, Second brother, what do you want to say? You can say it. Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand. You can say it first. My business is not urgent. Okay then. Zhang Xiaohua didn't refuse and said, It's like this. These 2 days, I've been refining some elixirs for Manor Head O. I usually have a little free time. I don't want to wait for your injury to heal. Now I'll think of a way to bring Captain He here. I'll try to treat his injury first. What do you think? Zhang Xiaohu heard this and said with great joy, Of course, this is a good thing. I think that although martial Uncle He's injury is serious, the time taken is shorter than Master and the others. Perhaps the sooner the Dantian is repaired, the better. In fact, the disciples of Lingxiang Peak don't pay attention to people like martial Uncle He these 2 years. I just need to find a reason to let the disciples bring him here, and let him stay here for a few days. This Zhang Xiaohua looked around and said, although your small courtyard is not small, there will be disciples coming in and out. And maybe there will be more female disciples in the future. It's quite inconvenient for Captain He to stay here. This is easy to do. There is a row of empty rooms in the backyard. You just need to clean them up a little. Who would go to the backyard for no reason? Zhang Xiaohua thought for a while and nodded. That's good. I'll stay in your backyard. In fact, it's not good for me to come here every day. Previously, when you were seriously injured, it was reasonable for me to visit my benefactor. But now that you've recovered, it doesn't make sense for me to come here frequently. Oh, that's reasonable. Then what should I do? Zhang Xiaohu asked. Cough, cough. Zhang Xiaohua coughed a few times and said, don't go through the main door of your small courtyard. Zhang Xiaohu understood a little. He knew how good Zhang Xiaohua's qinggong was. She could fly in the sky. It was simply too easy for her to come in without being noticed. Then, when should I call Martial Uncle He here? Zhang Xiaohu asked again. The sooner the better. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, I'll go to the backyard in a while and tidy it up. Oh right. Second brother, didn't you just say that you have something to tell me? What is it? It's like this. Xiaohua, didn't you give me a nameless inner strength cultivation method yesterday, and ask me to practice it to hide my inner strength? Ah, what's wrong, second brother? You can't have practiced it in just one day, right? I practiced that chant for a long time. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. No, how is that possible? Zhang Xiaohu shook his head again and again. That cultivation method is very mysterious. I can only roughly understand the front part. I don't know when I'll be able to practice it. It's just that I feel that after practicing this cultivation method, it's not realistic to practice the ethereal divine art and Su Huan mental cultivation method. Moreover, I don't know how much I can hide my inner strength after practicing this cultivation method. However, Little Blossom, perhaps what you learned is different from what I learned. I believe that as long as no one transmits true qi into my dantian and meridians, no one will be able to tell my Nigong cultivation just by looking at my appearance. I just need to practice this cultivation method together with the ethereal divine art and Su Huan mental cultivation method. When my inner strength reaches the large success stage, this cultivation method should be about the same. This is the best and most time-saving method. Isn't that so? Zhang Xiaohua slapped his forehead. He had overlooked that Zhang Xiaohu practiced martial arts and didn't need to hide his divine sense. If he only wanted to hide his inner strength, it wouldn't be as complicated as he originally thought. He also didn't need to practice the entire cultivation method. In fact, if Zhang Xiaohua wanted to know Zhang Xiaohu's inner strength, he could use his divine sense or true qi to enter Zhang Xiaohu's meridians. Just by relying on the naked eye, it was absolutely impossible to see the depth, let alone other people. If Zhang Xiaohu deliberately hid his inner strength during a normal fight, it was really difficult for anyone to see the flaw. Second brother's words are very reasonable. I've thought too much, Zhang Xiaohua said apologetically. However, second brother, this cultivation method is very mysterious. If you want to hide it from the people of Lingering Fragrance Peak, it's best to practice this cultivation method together with other inner strength. Then what does second brother mean? Do you want to start practicing the Su Huan mental cultivation method? But your injuries, Zhang Xiaohua said with some worry. Zhang Xiaohu stretched his arms and kicked his legs, saying, with a great divine doctor like you, what is there to be afraid of with this body of mine? Moreover, didn't you say that my dantian and meridians didn't suffer any damage? Practicing inner strength shouldn't be a problem? That's right, although I haven't really practiced the ethereal divine art these few days, I can feel that the inner strength in my body is still increasing. If a period of time passes, the inner strength of the ethereal divine art will be too strong. It seems to be unfavorable for practicing the Su Huan mental cultivation method. Second brother, since you have more than 20 years of cultivation, as long as your dantian is repaired, the damaged inner strength will naturally be slowly cultivated back. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, since second brother wants to practice the Su Huan mental cultivation method, then I'll try to see if I can help you. But if it doesn't work, second brother, don't blame me. Although she had heard from Yang Ruping that day that the people of the immortal Tao might have a successful example of this joint practice, she didn't say how to deal with it. Zhang Xiaohua could only feel the stones and cross the river. Chapter 759. Then Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, since you want to help second brother, Captain, he should wait for a while. I'll clean the backyard and let you use it first. The backyard was behind the house where Zhang Xiaohu lived. Through a small door in the yard, they could see that there were several small rooms with some odds and ends. Zhang Xiaohua moved quickly and cleaned up a space in the room in a short time. When she was about to do something else, she was stopped by Zhang Xiaohu and said, the rest needs to be done carefully. Let Chang'e and Chen do it. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, they are accumulating popularity for you. Are you willing to let them be disturbed? Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile, of course popularity needs to be accumulated, but housework also needs to be done. As he said, he walked out of the room. Zhang Xiaohua had to follow him out. They came to the kitchen. In a short time, half of the elixir liquid in a water tank was gone. It was unknown how many times Chang'e and Chen had gone back and how many jade bottles they had filled. Seeing them come in, Chen smiled and said, senior brother, do you want to help us deliver the elixir? Zhang Xiaohu glanced at Chang'e and said, I want to but I can't. If I fall on the way, I'll have to lie in bed for half a month. Chang'e pursed her lips and said, I'm afraid you want to deliver the elixir. Several of the most beautiful female disciples of Mingsui Hall are talking about senior brother Zhang. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu didn't dare to go further on this topic. He just smiled and told them about the cleaning of the backyard. Chen said curiously, that house is just for storing odds and ends. Why do you clean it up? Do you want to? Zhang Xiaohua almost laughed in his heart. This woman's imagination is really amazing. Zhang Xiaohu said awkwardly, why does this senior brother of mine have such an image in your eyes? After that, she told them that she was going to treat He Tianshu. Chang'e and Chen were both surprised when they heard it. They looked at each other and said, Zhang Xiaohua, can you really do it? Although Zhang Xiaohua had previously told them about this matter, and Zhang Xiaohu's dantian had also been repaired using the Meridian's nourishing pill, but when they thought about how He Tianshu's limbs had been crushed, and his dantian and meridians had been destroyed, even the disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak had said that he was a cripple, so they couldn't help but ask. Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and said, I'm not very sure either, but I can't just watch Captain He and the others go on like this. If I can, I still have to try. All right. Chang'e seemed to understand Zhang Xiaohua's temper. She would never say for sure. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua had already agreed, she said, Xiaohu, go and get the bedding in the house. We'll go to the backyard to clean it up. After that, she pulled Chen and ran out. Sure enough, when Zhang Xiaohua took the bedding and followed Zhang Xiaohu back to the house had already changed. Zhang Xiaohua praised, as the saying goes, professional things should be done by professionals. If I had known, I wouldn't have moved just now. It's nothing. We're just trying our best. It's far from being as kind as you are. Little Blossom, I'll leave the matter of martial uncle He and the other martial uncles to you. The revival of the Misty sect depends on you. Chang'e said seriously. Don't worry, Sister Chang'e. I've already made fake medicine for Misty School. Why would I care about contributing a little more? I've made fake medicine for Misty School? Chen asked curiously. What does that mean? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Chen, come closer. I have a little secret to tell you. As expected, Chen put her ear close to Zhang Xiaohua's and heard Zhang Xiaohua whispering something in her ear. She immediately forgot to ask, and her face gradually turned red. She looked down from time to time, seemingly aiming for the slightly bulging chest. Naughty! Zhang Xiaohu immediately knew what she was talking about. Sure enough, after Zhang Xiaohua finished, Chen Chen asked shyly, Zhang Xiaohua, what you said is true? Zhang Xiaohua said seriously, it seems so. I'm not sure either. After all, I can't test it. Chang'e asked curiously, Xiaohua, what are you talking about? Chen Chen went forward and pulled Chang'e's hand. Senior sister, we're done here. Let's go. The other junior sisters are still waiting for us. After saying that, she dragged Chang'e out of the room. Zhang Xiaohu waited for the two of them to leave before pointing at Zhang Xiaohua and saying, You really said it. Zhang Xiaohua said innocently, I only said it seems so, guess probably fine. You're right. Zhang Xiaohu sighed and said, I'll go get the elemental pill. Let's start now. I'm afraid that the Vice Hall Master from Lingering Fragrance Peak will come and watch me consume the elemental pill. That would be bad. After saying that, he turned around and left. Zhang Xiaohua bared her teeth and said, Hee, you're still pretending to be innocent after taking advantage of me. Zhang Xiaohu's body swayed twice before he stabilized himself. He shook his head and walked outside. Not long after, Zhang Xiaohu returned with the universal pill and the universal pill. Zhang Xiaohua took the jade bottle and opened it to smell the pill. She nodded and said, The medicinal smell of this pill isn't very strong. It seems that the level of refinement is quite high. It's really a pill used by Lingxiang Peak. Moreover, the medicinal properties of this pill are more gentle. It's suitable for cultivating cold attribute internal energy. After saying that, she asked Zhang Xiaohu to sit cross-legged on the bedding. She also sat in front of him and channeled her true qi into his meridians. Just like what Zhang Xiaohu said, after not seeing him for a few days, the internal energy in his meridians had increased by quite a bit. In his dantian, the place where the medicinal properties of the meridian nourishing pill gathered had been completely repaired. It was no different from before. Furthermore, the medicinal properties of the meridian nourishing pill were still in his dantian. Perhaps it was because Zhang Xiaohu had been warned by Zhang Xiaohua that he didn't dare to refine the medicinal properties. Ever since Zhang Xiaohua eavesdropped on the conversation between Yang Ruping and Aunt Qin in the Misty Hall, she had been pondering over the matter of Zhang Xiaohu cultivating two types of internal energy at the same time. However, there wasn't any jade slip that recorded this, so she didn't know how to help. With just an illusory story, it really made things difficult for her. In fact, in Zhang Xiaohua's opinion, no matter which school of internal energy cultivation method he cultivated, as long as his heart was from the Misty School, it would be fine. However, Zhang Xiaohu didn't think so. He was originally willing to cultivate the Misty Divine Art. Since the cult leader of the Fragrant Cult had given him the universal pill, it was impossible for him not to cultivate it. Thus, he would cultivate both at the same time. In addition, at this time, Zhang Xiaohu's meridians already had the internal energy of the Misty Divine Art. Zhang Xiaohua could only help Zhang Xiaohu through this process of yin and yang harmonization. Zhang Xiaohua whispered, Second brother, concentrate all the internal energy in your body into your dantian. Don't let it run amok in your meridians. Zhang Xiaohu followed her words and converged all the internal energy into his dantian. Zhang Xiaohua immediately sent a wisp of zhenqi to wrap the internal energy in his dantian into a ball. Then she threw a universal pill into Zhang Xiaohu's mouth. The universal pill melted in his mouth and turned into an ice-cold medicinal power that rushed into Zhang Xiaohu's dantian. Follow the incantation of the universal mental cultivation method and refine the medicinal power. Remember, you have to refine it bit by bit. Don't be greedy. Zhang Xiaohua whispered into Zhang Xiaohu's ear. After receiving the hint, Zhang Xiaohu silently circulated the universal mental cultivation method in his heart and refined the medicinal power bit by bit. As the medicinal power of the universal pill was refined, the first trace of universal mental cultivation method's internal energy was produced. Then, it slowly flowed through Zhang Xiaohu's meridians according to the universal mental cultivation method's circulation path. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized that the universal mental cultivation method's internal energy was not only terrifyingly cold, but the circulation path was also different from the Misty Divine Art. After circulating one cycle, the internal energy returned to the dantian. Zhang Xiahua sent another trace of true energy over and wrapped the cold internal energy. Then, she instructed Zhang Xiaohu to slowly refine the remaining medicinal power and wrap the cold internal energy with his true energy. Soon after, she whispered, "Second brother, I'm going to try to release these two types of internal energy. Don't circulate your cultivation method. Just sit there and don't do anything." Zhang Xiaohu nodded. Thus, Zhang Xiahua controlled the true energy that wrapped the two types of internal energy and released two equal amounts of true energy. She also released her divine sense and tried to merge the two types of true energy together. However, the internal energy of the misty divine art was warm while the internal energy of the universal mental cultivation method was cold. When the two different types of true energy came into contact with each other, it was as though water was poured into a pot of boiling oil. The two types of internal energy were boiling, and it felt as though they were about to explode. This is bad. Don't let your dantian explode. Zhang Xiahua did not dare to be negligent, and hurriedly sent another trace of true energy over, wanting to wrap the two types of true energy together. However, at this time, the two types of true energy seemed to have a mind of their own. Or perhaps it was because they were attracted to each other. They suddenly intertwined with each other rapidly. At the place where the two types of true energy came into contact with each other, there was an extremely small explosion sound. The intertwining of the two types of true energy created a kind of attractive force that wanted to attract the other things in the dantian. At this time, Zhang Xiaohu's dantian only had two balls of internal energy wrapped with true energy, and there was nothing else. This attractive force was like a tornado that sucked for a long time. It only gradually sucked in some of the medicinal power from the meridians that had not been refined. Moreover, this attractive force also sucked in some things from the meridians. With the addition of the meridian soothing pill and some other things from the meridians, the entanglement of the yin and yang inner forces became even more intense. Could it be that they are like water and fire? Zhang Xiahua didn't know what to do next. At this moment, the medicinal power of the meridian soothing pill and the thing in the meridians reached the point where the two types of internal energy intersected. Immediately, the light popping sound gradually decreased until it finally subsided. Could it be that they fused together like this? Zhang Xiahua thought to herself. Just as Zhang Xiahua was about to let out a sigh of relief, the two types of true energy that were originally calm suddenly began to swell, as if they had been injected with medicinal herbs. Not good, it's going to explode. Zhang Xiahua thought anxiously. Chapter 760. Zhang Xiahua was shocked when she saw the two types of inner energy mixed together. It was as if they had been injected with an excited herb. Without thinking, she sent all the vital energy in her body into Zhang Xiaohu's dantian, enveloping the increasingly large inner energy. Zhang Xiahua, on the other hand, was filled with regret. He regretted that he had been too arrogant, thinking that he could face all difficulties head-on with the immortal Daoxinqi. He had easily pushed his second brother's martial path, and even his life into a desperate situation of life and death. Large beads of sweat instantly dripped from Zhang Xiaohua's forehead. Zhang Xiaohu was well aware of the abnormality in his inner energy. He was shocked, alarmed, and flustered at first, but when he opened his eyes and saw his younger brother's pale face and the sweat on his forehead, these negative emotions were immediately swept away. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he didn't dare to. He was afraid that his words would affect Zhang Xiaohua's cultivation. At this moment, the situation was getting more and more urgent. Zhang Xiaohu's meridians and dantian were all refined from martial arts inner energy. They couldn't withstand Zhang Xiaohua's immortal vital energy. However, because Zhang Xiahua was anxious, she sent in too much vital energy. Zhang Xiaohua's meridians immediately began to tear. The tearing was very painful and sudden, so Zhang Xiaohu accidentally groaned. Zhang Xiahua was shocked. She opened her eyes and asked, "Second brother, hold on a little longer. I'll be done soon." Although these words were comforting, Zhang Xiahua was still a little panicked. She was almost crying. When Zhang Xiaohu saw this, he pursed his lips and smiled. "It's fine. Xiahua, take your time." That day, Vice Hall Master Zhong's law enforcement disciple was 100 times stronger than this, But I wasn't afraid. What are you doing? Moreover, even if your dantian is broken, don't we still have the meridian nourishing pill? What are you afraid of? Zhang Xiaohua forced a smile and didn't dare to say anything. She calmed her mind and controlled the vital energy entering her dantian. The immortal vital energy was indeed domineering. As Zhang Xiaohua sent in more vital energy, it actually wrapped around the two types of inner energy. It no longer expanded, but the size of this vital energy was almost the same as Zhang Xiaohu's dantian. What should we do? Using vital energy to wrap up the inner energy is only a temporary solution. We can't always stay in second brother's dantian. She opened her eyes and looked at Zhang Xiaohu. At this moment, she had already closed her eyes quietly, as if nothing had happened. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and also closed her eyes. However, her mind was spinning like a wheel. She wanted to find a good method in her memory. Unfortunately, after flipping through several cultivation methods, there was no content in this area. Restriction. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of something. If the restriction was inserted into Zhang Xiaohu's dantian and wrapped up the inner energy, then there shouldn't be any danger. Of course, the consequences were obvious. Zhang Xiaohu wouldn't be able to cultivate any inner energy in the future. This dantian was completely filled with restrictions. Without a better method, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but be confused. The words fusion, yin and yang vital energy, and expansion kept flashing in her mind. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua seemed to think of something. It was like a bright light illuminating a dark room. Yin and yang vital energy. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. She suddenly thought of the scene at the bottom of the mountain in the Yulong Grand Canyon, next to the extremely cold pool, when she picked the two black and white fruits. Needless to say, the fruits were black and white. They must be of opposite attributes. They originally grew separately, but when she picked them, she accidentally put them in the same jade box. Thus, the two black and white fruits inevitably fused together. What about their fusion? It was like the fusion of two different medicinal liquids in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. It actually looked like two fish. Perhaps, the ethereal divine art and Su Huan mental cultivation method could also be fused like this? However, the fusion of the black and white fruits was natural. There was no external force at all, and there was no such expansion. How could these two types of internal energy be handled? At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had already calmed down. Her mind was also a lot more flexible. An incredible idea emerged in her mind. The fusion of two kinds of elixir liquids requires a technique to fuse them. Then, can the same technique be used for internal energy? At the same time, another thought uncontrollably emerged. If it can be done like this, then can the immortal vital energy also be fused? Then the human body, or the dantian and meridians, can it be like a pill furnace that can refine elixirs in the body? Then what kind of elixirs can be refined with vital energy? It had to be said that Zhang Xiaohua had a flash of inspiration. She was actually able to comprehend the essence of cultivation on her own. However, this was just some comprehension. As for the actual implementation, it was not something that could be understood in a short time. Zhang Xiaohua immediately shook her head, trying to shake these outrageous thoughts out of her mind. She grumbled inwardly. What kind of situation is this? Second brother's life is at stake, and I'm still thinking nonsense. But under the heavenly Tao, all methods return to the origin. The fusion of elixirs is not impossible. After thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, Second brother, I'm very sorry. I didn't expect it to reach this stage. I thought that if I only released a small amount of internal energy, it wouldn't be too dangerous. Zhang Xiaohu opened his eyes and smiled. It's all right, Xiaohua. I was thinking too much before I forced you to do this. If I cultivated the Su Huan Heart Sutra or the ethereal divine art, wouldn't there be no problem? How can this be blamed on you? Second brother, actually I just thought of an idea. It's just what? There's no but. Just do it. It's fine as long as I'm still alive. Anyway, your second sister-in-law is just outside. I'll just say a few words to her. Second brother Zhang Xiaohua choked and said, Don't worry. Even if I have to risk my life, I will ensure your safety. Even if I lose my martial arts, I won't let you lose your life. Father and mother still want to see you and second sister-in-law's child. At the mention of Chang'e, Zhang Xiaohu's face was filled with longing. He smiled and said, "All right, then why don't you hurry up and do it? If you do it a little earlier, won't you be able to see your nephew a little earlier?" Zhang Xiaohua forced a smile and said, "I'll try now. However, I don't know what the consequences will be." "What are you waiting for? Since you have an idea, then give it a try. Your second brother isn't a coward." "Okay." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and gritted her teeth. She stretched out her left hand and formed a seal. She gathered the remaining vital energy in her body to her fingertips. Zhang Xiaohua had formed this seal countless times on Tianmu Peak and was already very familiar with it. However, when she formed the seal today, it felt as if 1,000 kilograms of stones were falling on her fingertips. She only used 5 times the time compared to usual to finish forming the seal. Seeing that the seal was completed, Zhang Xiaohua took a deep breath. She glanced at Zhang Xiaohu's calm face and pointed her finger. The seal was directed towards Zhang Xiaohu's dantian. The seal formed from vital energy hit Zhang Xiaohu's body and entered his dantian in a flash. It went so smoothly that Zhang Xiaohua didn't expect it to. Furthermore, the seal entered his dantian and entered the ball formed by Zhang Xiaohua's vital energy. As the seal entered his dantian, the ball in his dantian began to rotate slowly. With every rotation, it shrank. However, not long after, the ball gradually stopped and its size didn't change. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed when she saw this. She hurriedly stopped the seal and continued to inject the seal into the ball. Slowly, the ball began to rotate again. The ball slowly rotated and its size gradually shrank. When Zhang Xiaohua had exhausted all the vital energy in her body, the ball slowly shrank to the size of a pea. Maybe it will work, Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. But this time he didn't dare to be reckless. He carefully retracted a little of the zhenqi wrapped around the ball. The ball didn't change much. He retracted a little more, but there was still no change. It wasn't until Zhang Xiaohua retracted all of his zhenqi that the 2 types of zhenqi were revealed. There was not much difference between the 2 types of vital energy. It was just like the yin-yang fruit and the liquid in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace that Zhang Xiaohua saw before. It looked like 2 fish entangled together. The place where the 2 fishes' eyes were was also a little bit of each other's vital energy. At the junction of these 2 types of vital energy, there was a layer of something that Zhang Xiaohua felt very familiar. It harmoniously bonded the 2 types of vital energy together. In addition to the medicinal power of the meridian nourishing pill, there was also something similar to starlight. What is this? Zhang Xiaohua was a little surprised. It feels very familiar, but thinking about it carefully, I don't think I have seen it before. Forget it. Now is not the time to think. Zhang Xiaohua opened her eyes and said, "Second brother, how do you feel?" "Very good, incomparably good." Zhang Xiaohu naturally knew about the changes in his dantian. He replied almost without hesitation. Zhang Xiaohua naturally knew that this was second brother's comforting words. She nodded and said, "Then, I will strike while the iron is hot and deal with the rest of the vital energy first." After saying that, she didn't rest. She controlled the vital energy that was wrapped around the 2 balls of vital energy and released a small wisp of vital energy. At the same time, she wrapped the vital energy that was wrapped around the vital energy to deal with the situation that just happened. However, the situation that happened at this time made Zhang Xiaohua's jaw drop to the ground. The vital energy that was produced by the ethereal divine art and the universal pill was released was like a child that saw its mother. There was no need for Zhang Xiaohua and Zhang Xiaohu to do anything. It immediately floated towards the 2 balls of vital energy that were entangled together. Moreover, once it came into contact, it drilled into it and disappeared without a trace. All right. Zhang Xiaohua was even more pleasantly surprised. Each of them released 2 balls of inner strength, and the same amount of inner strength was released. Not long after, the 2 balls of inner strength were absorbed by the inner strength ball, and the size of the inner strength ball did not change at all. Strange. Zhang Xiaohua was a little surprised. Chapter 761. The situation in Zhang Xiaohu's dantian at this time made Zhang Xiahua a little surprised. Although the qi mass formed by the yin and yang inner force had already absorbed all the ethereal divine techniques inner force and the medicinal effect of the universal pill, it was still the size of a pea and did not expand at all. Previously, any inner force in Zhang Xiaohu's dantian was much bigger than this pea, but now it was forcefully compressed to such a small size. This was somewhat out of Zhang Xiaohua's understanding. However, thinking about the word fuse, Zhang Xiahua had some understanding. When different elixir liquids were fused together, there would be some changes in the size. It was just that she didn't notice it at that time. And when the inner force was fused together, the space it occupied would be even smaller. Of course, there was another reason that Zhang Xiahua neglected. That was Zhang Xiahua was in a hurry at that time. When she saw that the technique of fusing the elixir was effective, it was as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. She injected the technique into Zhang Xiaohu's dantian again and again. In fact, this technique might be enough once, but how could it withstand Zhang Xiaohua's repeated attempts? Of course, the two types of inner force with different attributes were compressed to the point that they couldn't be any smaller. In addition, due to the injection of the technique by Zhang Xiahua, as well as the medicinal effect of the meridian nourishing pill, star power, and some immortal true qi, the pea-sized yin and yang inner force seemed to have a motive force. It slowly rotated in Zhang Xiaohu's dantian, just like the core in Zhang Xiaohua's Naiwan palace. Zhang Xiahua didn't know that the disciple that Yang Ruping mentioned had cultivated two types of inner force with the help of an immortal Dao expert. However, the yin and yang inner force mass in Zhang Xiaohu's dantian was something that Zhang Xiahua had never dreamed of. As for the development prospects of this yin and yang inner force mass, Zhang Xiahua didn't know. However, when she thought about how the fusion of inner force could be combined with the elixir of the immortal Dao, Zhang Xiahua knew that this thing was definitely not simple. With a thought, Zhang Xiahua said, "Second brother, I have finished dealing with it. Adjust your breath and see if there is anything unusual." Okay. Zhang Xiaohu didn't dare to circulate the mental cultivation method. He only allowed Zhang Xiahua to mess around in his dantian. When he heard Zhang Xiaohua's words, his heart moved and the mental cultivation method of the ethereal god art immediately circulated. The yin and yang inner force mass slowly rotated, and a trace of true qi was extracted from it. According to the circulation route of the ethereal god art, it circulated in Zhang Xiaohu's meridians for a cycle. Then it increased a little and returned to the yin and yang inner force mass. When Zhang Xiaohu finished, Zhang Xiahua asked nervously, "How is it?" "And it feels very good. It seems that the power of this inner force is much stronger than before. It has almost doubled. However, this is just a feeling. I have to try it in the future to know." "And how about the meridians?" "Fortunately, there was a tear just now and it still hurts. I think it will heal after a few days of rest." "Then, second brother, can you circulate the inner force of the Suhuan mental cultivation method for another cycle?" "This. I should be able to. Although I haven't circulated it before, I remember the meridian route. Let me try." After speaking, Zhang Xiaohu silently circulated the Suhuan mental cultivation method. He extracted the inner force refined by the Suhuan pill from the yin and yang inner force mass and slowly circulated it along the meridian route that was completely different from the ethereal god art. At first, it was very obscure and sometimes even stagnant. However, after one cycle, it returned to his dantian with a slight increase. Following that, Zhang Xiaohu didn't stop. He extracted another trace of inner force and circulated it along the same route as the ethereal god art. This time, it was less obscure and more smooth. When the inner force of the Suhuan mental cultivation method returned to his dantian, Zhang Xiaohu opened his eyes and let out a long breath. The Suhuan mental cultivation method really lives up to its reputation. Just these two cycles of the ethereal god art. S refined inner force was equivalent to 3 cycles of the ethereal god art. That's right. This Suhuan mental cultivation method is something that even the inner disciples covet. If it can't compare to the ethereal god art, then how could the sect leader win your heart? Zhang Xiahua smiled and said, There shouldn't be any problems with two different cultivation methods, right? Zhang Xiaohu smiled comfortably and said, not only is there no problem, it's really wonderful. Not to mention that the two inner force cultivation methods are different. The way the meridians temper the two types of inner force is also different. Other people will be tired after 10 cycles of circulation of the meridians, but I'll adjust my breathing for 20 cycles, and my meridians won't be tired. Also, I've already tested it just now. When I only circulate the ethereal god art as cultivation method, the Suhuan mental cultivation method can also produce a trace of inner force. It's just that this inner force is much less than the ethereal god art. When I circulate the Suhuan mental cultivation method, the inner force of the ethereal god art will also increase. It can be said that the inner force of these two cultivation methods has a relationship of mutual promotion and restraint. Mutual promotion and restraint? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and thought, why is it similar to the 5 elements? But this is only the inner force of 2 attributes. Could it be that I can also cultivate other cultivation methods? It's possible. When refining pills, don't there also need to be a few main ingredients and some auxiliary ingredients? It's the same for cultivation methods. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohu had almost lost his life just now. How could Zhang Xiaohua still dare to think about it? She only thought in her heart. The inner force of 2 attributes should be related to the Tao of life and death. Should I tell second brother about my own understanding? It's just that the understanding of the Tao of heaven had always been something that could be understood but not explained. Wanting to let Zhang Xiaohu understand was not an easy matter. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua thought again. Zhang Xiaohu was unable to cultivate the immortal Tao cultivation method, but he should be able to cultivate the martial cultivation method. The soaring dragon cultivation method that she stole from young Master Long was not bad. If Zhang Xiaohu were to learn it, it should be very helpful. When Zhang Xiaohua told Zhang Xiaohu about the soaring dragon cultivation method, Zhang Xiaohu's head shook like a rattle drum. What a joke! He had just cultivated the Su Huan cultivation method, and Zhang Xiaohua's nameless chant which he needed to comprehend. Where would he have the spare time to cultivate this? Moreover, that dangerous scene earlier was still lingering in his mind. He didn't want to cause any more problems before he succeeded in cultivating the 2 cultivation methods. Zhang Xiaohua thought about it, and felt that it made sense. This soaring dragon cultivation method was not a cultivation method to cultivate inner force. It was just a technique to use inner force. If there was time, she would write down this cultivation method and pass it to Zhang Xiaohu. There was no need to teach it now. Following that, Zhang Xiaohua jumped up and smiled. Since it's like this, then today can be considered a great success. Although it was very dangerous just now, I didn't expect second brother's character to be so good. You were actually able to turn danger into safety. As the saying goes, if one survives a great disaster, there will be good fortune in the future. Little brother wishes second brother's unrivaled martial arts, unifying the Jianghu and having a long life. Ah! Zhang Xiaohu also sat up from the ground and laughed. Thanks for your praise. If I don't have unrivaled martial arts, then I'll be letting down your prophecy. The 2 of them laughed and walked out of the small house. There was no one in the front yard, and they didn't know where Changge and Chen Chen went. Zhang Xiaohua looked at the sky and said, second brother, it's getting late. I have to go. Take a look at the pill furnace. Manor Heto's illness, he still needs to rely on this pill. I'll come back tomorrow. If you have time, bring Captain He to the backyard. Zhang Xiaohu was somewhat worried. Xiaohua, isn't this too tiring for you? Why don't we wait a few days? Don't, second brother. Seeing Captain He like this makes my heart ache. I'd rather be a little tired, so that Captain He can get back on his feet and recover his martial arts. Only when Captain He returns to his previous state will my heart be at peace. Yes, at this moment, Zhang Xiaohua also felt a little guilty. If he hadn't attracted too much yuan qi from the medicinal field, the medicinal plants wouldn't have sprouted and He Tianshu wouldn't have ended up like this. Zhang Xiaohu didn't know the cause and effect of this and only nodded. Then, you should rest more. If you don't feel well tomorrow, it's better to postpone it. If the same dangerous situation occurs tomorrow, it's not good. And I know, second brother. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said somewhat tiredly, I'll know after I rest for a night. Oh, by the way, second brother, when you practice, try to make the two kinds of internal forces equal. Don't have one more and one less. Otherwise, there may be some problems. Well, how can I not know this? You should go back quickly. Zhang Xiaohu chuckled and drove Zhang Xiaohua out of the small courtyard. Coming out of Zhang Xiaohu's small courtyard, the entire Misty Hall felt a little quiet. Occasionally, a few male disciples glanced at Zhang Xiaohua and walked away without greeting her. There was not even a single female disciple. Zhang Xiaohua didn't return to the courtyard of the Pill Tower Hall. Instead, she went to a secluded place and made a hand sign. Circulating the little amount of genuine qi in her meridians, she went straight to the pill room at the top of the mountain. When she arrived at the pill room, the genuine qi in her meridians was gone. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly looked at the pill furnace. Fortunately, there was still some time before the liquid was melted. She didn't dare to neglect and quickly sat down cross-legged. She took out a primordial stone and replenished the genuine qi in her body. When the time was right, Zhang Xiaohua didn't get up. She used her divine sense to carefully observe the temperature of the pill furnace. At the right time, she made a hand sign to melt the liquid. She put several main ingredients and more than 10 auxiliary ingredients of the Spirit Awakening pill together, and let the medicinal liquids of different attributes interact with each other and gradually fuse. After all this was done, Zhang Xiaohua carefully looked at the earth fire again. She made a few hand signs to better control it. Only then did she sit cross-legged again and carefully think about what she had learned today. Just now, when she helped Zhang Xiaohu cultivate the two types of internal strength, although she met with setbacks at the beginning, the final fusion of the two types of internal strength gave Zhang Xiaohua a lot of inspiration. She might not have two types of genuine qi, but was it possible to compress the genuine qi in her dantian into a ball like Zhang Xiaohu's internal strength? That way, wouldn't he be able to refine even more true qi? Chapter 762. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua felt that it made sense. Since Zhang Xiaohu felt that the power of his inner strength had increased after compressing his inner strength, he should be able to do it too. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua made a gesture and cast the same liquid melting incantation into his middle dantian. However, when the incantation entered his body, it didn't change like Zhang Xiaohu's dantian, which pushed the rotation and compression of his inner strength. It was like a clay ox entering the sea without any effect. It didn't trigger any changes in the true energy in his middle dantian. This Zhang Xiaohua was dumbfounded. What's going on? He thought of a lot of bad consequences, but he never thought that there would be no reaction. After that, he cast a few more incantations unwillingly, but they were all ineffective. Zhang Xiaohua gave up dejectedly. He couldn't understand why Zhang Xiaohu could do it, but he couldn't. Could it be that my character isn't as good as second brother's? Zhang Xiaohua brought out the common answer to all the questions. Just when Zhang Xiaohua was puzzled, he had a slight oversight. This oversight was that he forgot the difference between true energy and inner strength. The reason why Zhang Xiaohu's inner strength could be merged with Zhang Xiaohua's incantation was that true energy was of a much higher level than inner strength. The incantation formed by true energy could have unpredictable effects on inner strength. When Zhang Xiaohua used his quintessential qi to form a hand seal, it was as though he was scooping up water from a water tank with a ladle before pouring it into the water tank. The quintessential qi in the water tank was still the same. In other words, if Zhang Xiaohua wanted to achieve the same effect as Zhang Xiaohu, then he had to cultivate a martial art that was of a higher level than his Forget Worries Sutra. The true energy in that person's meridians must be more pure, and of a higher level than Zhang Xiaohua's. Only then could he control and compress the true energy in Zhang Xiaohua's middle dantian. When he couldn't compress the true energy in his dantian, Zhang Xiaohua thought of another problem that was related to the sky stalactite. At that time, Zhang Xiaohua felt that the heaven stalactite was rich in heaven and earth yuan qi. Moreover, it grew together with the black-white fruit, so it must be a very precious item. Therefore she carefully collected it. However, the heaven and earth yuan qi seemed to be somewhat different from the heaven and earth yuan qi that Zhang Xiaohua absorbed. Therefore, when Zhang Xiaohua put it in her purse, she completely forgot about it. Even after returning from the Yulon Grand Canyon, when Zhang Xiaohua counted her gains, she did not remember this jade bottle that contained the heaven stalactite. Until today, the whitening elixir, that didn't even use a single drop of sky stalactite, had caused a stir among all the female disciples of the Misty Hall. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua remember the essence of heaven and earth in the stalactite. What did Zhang Xiaohua lack the most right now? The first was divine sense, and the second was true qi. Since the heaven stalactite could replenish his true qi and even increase his cultivation, how could he not want to give it a try? Previously, he had estimated that since he did not know the method to refine it, his meridians might be damaged. However, when he thought about the 3 drops of stone milk he fed to Little Black, Little Yellow, and Yellow Wind, he figured that he could consume it with his mouth as well. Zhang Xiaohua took out the jade bottle containing the heaven stalactite milk from her purse. She opened the lid and smelled the faint fragrance. With a slight movement of her finger, a drop of heaven stalactite milk flew out of the jade bottle. Zhang Xiaohua put away the jade bottle and opened her mouth. The drop of heaven stalactite milk slid down her throat. Following which, Zhang Xiaohua wrapped it in a ball of zhenqi and sent it into her meridians. She wanted to slowly refine it and melt it into zhenqi. However, out of Zhang Xiaohua's expectations, even though he had been silently circulating the Worry-Free Heart Sutra to refine the heaven stalactite milk in her meridians, the drop of heaven stalactite milk slowly decreased. There was no excess zhenqi being produced. What is going on? Zhang Xiaohua was extremely depressed. Just now, the method to melt the heaven stalactite milk was useful to Zhang Xiaohu, but it had no effect on her. Right now, the heaven stalactite milk was useful to Huang Feng and Little Yellow, but it was useless to her. It was fine if she said it was useless, but the drop of heaven stalactite milk was still decreasing. Even Zhang Xiaohua did not know where the drop of heaven stalactite milk went. When the last drop of heaven stalactite milk disappeared, Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense discovered that the heaven stalactite milk had turned into something similar to the yuan qi of heaven and earth, and merged into her body. As for where it merged into, she did not know. Since this heaven stalactite milk can turn into something similar to the yuan qi of heaven and earth, then my meridians should be able to refine and absorb it. But why is it not working? Is it because the Tranquil Heart Sutra is unable to absorb it? Or is it because my meridians are unable to absorb it? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but think about it. At this moment, he recalled the scene a few days ago when he used the delusion breaker Dharma eye to look at himself. He remembered seeing a few strands of silk floating around his bones, and the color was different. Could it be that these strands of silk were the yuan qi of heaven and earth? Zhang Xiaohua almost wanted to open the delusion breaker Dharma eye again, but Zhang Xiaohua's zhenqi was completely depleted. How could she have the energy to open it again? Perhaps I should wait until tomorrow when I recover from my break. Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. But if these strands of silk are the yuan qi of heaven and earth, why are the colors different? Could it be that there are different kinds of yuan qi of heaven and earth? In an instant, Zhang Xiaohua was shocked by her own ridiculous conjecture. Following that, more questions popped up in her mind. Since the yuan qi of heaven and earth is different, then what kind of yuan qi can I absorb? What are the other kinds of yuan qi of heaven and earth? How can I absorb them? Is it the meridians or the cultivation method? Following that, Zhang Xiaohua thought about the dense meridians that she saw on Byron's body. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and smiled bitterly. The path of cultivation is indeed long. Even if you understand a little, there will be more. Not to mention the realm of understanding the way of heaven. Even the foundation of cultivation is something that I haven't understood yet. If there is a way in my heart, I will search for it from top to bottom. After lamenting, Zhang Xiaohua felt exhausted. She took out the primordial stones and sat down cross-legged. She closed her eyes and began to cultivate the Carefree Heart Sutra. Not long after, she fell into a deep sleep. The starry sky and the starlight arrived as expected. When she woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua was full of energy. All her exhaustion was swept away. The true qi in her meridians was still the same, only about half of it. However, the Dan core in her Naiwan palace had improved a little. When Zhang Xiaohua saw the various medicinal liquids melting in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, Zhang Xiaohua felt relieved and left the alchemy room. Facing the rising sun, she practiced the Big Dipper magical fist, using the mysterious flow to refine her bones. Although the Big Dipper mystical fist was the same as before, Zhang Xiaohua felt that there was something different about it. However, when he tried to explain it, he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Could it be that the heaven stalactite is beneficial to the Big Dipper magical fist? Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself. Of course, this was only Zhang Xiaohua's conjecture. She did not have any real evidence. After practicing the Big Dipper magical fist, Zhang Xiaohua murmured, "Life is so beautiful." She took a deep breath of the clear morning breeze at the top of Shixin Peak, and ran all the way to the back of Shixin Peak, to Oyan's residence. Zhang Xiaohua entered the courtyard. As soon as she came out of the corner of the room, she saw an old man with gray hair sitting in front of Oyan's bed. His back was facing her, but his hand was on Oyan's wrist. It seemed that he was checking Oyan's pulse. Is this the doctor of Lingxiang Peak? Zhang Xiaohua thought, and immediately released her divine sense to take a closer look. However, when he released his divine sense and saw that the doctor had a few strands of dark beard on his slender face, the doctor seemed to have sensed something. He opened his eyes and looked around in astonishment. Ouch! Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. She made a gesture and hid underground. He did not expect the doctor to have such a high cultivation level. He could actually sense her divine sense. Careless. Zhang Xiaohua silently scolded himself. This time, he carefully released a bit of his divine sense to observe the room. However, this time, he didn't dare to directly cover the doctor. Because of this, the doctor didn't look around. Zhang Xiaohua secretly wiped the sweat off his forehead. Before he entered the cult of fragrance, he had been practicing the nameless formula in order to deceive the eyes of the elders and consecrators. But after being in the pill hall for so long, he had not met any top experts. Zhang Xiaohua had unconsciously let his guard down. Today he had actually used his divine sense to envelop the other party. He had been too careless. After a long time, the doctor stood up and said something to Qiu Tong, who was accompanying him. Then he walked to the main hall and picked up the brush and ink on the table. After writing for a while, he cupped his hands and left. Qiu Tong carefully saw him out. After the doctor left, Zhang Xiaohua came out from underground and took the prescription that the doctor left behind. He carefully looked at it. Before he could finish reading the prescription, he heard footsteps. Zhang Xiaohua looked outside carefully. Only then did he relax. Xiaohua, when did you come in? The person who came back was Qiu Tong. Looking at Qiu Tong's indifferent expression, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, I came in when the doctor of Lingxiang Peak was examining the patient. Oh, so that's how it is. Qiu Tong nodded and said, however, you're wrong. This person is not a simple doctor of Lingxiang Peak. He is Tang Jinsheng, known as the Divine Doctor. But isn't the godly doctor also a doctor? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. Of course, this senior Tang Jin is one of the few male elders on Lingering Fragrance Peak. His martial arts, character, and prestige can be counted on one hand. Elder. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. No wonder he's so powerful, he's actually an elder. Powerful? Qiu Tong asked. You've seen Senior Tang before? Not at all. This is the first time I've seen him today, and the first time I've heard of his name. Then why did you say he's powerful? Qiu Tong was ready to get to the bottom of this. Chapter 763. Zhang Xiaohua did not hide it and whispered. When I came in just now, Divine Dr. Tang felt something. I'm not sure if he knew I was coming, but looking at him, his martial arts should not be weak. Oh, so that's how it is. Qiu Tong nodded and said, Divine Dr. Tang is not like other doctors. He is famous in Lingxiang Peak. Just as you guessed, he is not only skilled in medicine, but his internal strength is also impressive to ordinary inner disciples. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "It seems that the hierarch values young Miss very much. He actually brought out such a person. I think young Miss should be fine." But then she changed the topic and said, "But I think Divine Dr. Tang's prescriptions are mainly focused on recuperation. It may not be able to cure young Miss's illness." Qiu Tong's face darkened. "That's right. According to Divine Dr. Tang, young Miss is terminally ill. I'm afraid that she can't be saved. He can only prescribe some useless prescriptions, but it's better than nothing. Sigh, if only Divine Dr. Tang came earlier." Earlier? Zhang Xiaohua was a little surprised. Divine Dr. Tang said that he came late. If he had taken over the treatment when young Miss just fell ill, maybe there would be a 30% chance. Only 30%. Zhang Xiaohua was even more surprised. She unconsciously doubted the awakening pill she refined. Then why did he only come now? I remember Sister Qiutong said that young Miss fell ill not long ago. Did we pass the news to Lingxiang Peak? Qiutong shook her head blankly and said, "Who knows what the hierarch is thinking? What's the use of only paying attention to young Miss's illness now?" Zhang Xiaohua's heart moved and said, "Then did Divine Dr. Tang ask about the acupoints on young Miss's head?" "Yes, of course we did. However, we didn't directly ask who hit the acupoints. Instead, we asked which doctor had come to Lingering Fragrance Peak. We also asked if we had found anyone else. Well, we especially asked if we had found anyone from Misty Hall." Then she worriedly looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said, "Divine Dr. Tang also said that Mrs. illness has been delayed, and the treatment has been blindly performed by a quack doctor. No matter what kind of medicine is prescribed, it will be ineffective." This Zhang Xiaohua was a little hesitant. After all, Tang Tong was a legitimate divine doctor, and she was just a newbie. Perhaps Divine Dr. Tang's words made some sense, so she said awkwardly, "Sister Qiutong, my medical skills may not be as good as Divine Dr. Tang's, but when Qiutong heard this, she immediately understood Zhang Xiaohua's meaning. She waved her hand and said, "Xiaohua, don't take these words to heart. Elder, you and I know about your relationship with young Mississippi. If you have the ability, you will definitely give it your all. You will definitely not have the slightest intention of hurting young Mississippi." What Divine Dr. Tang said is probably what the previous doctors said. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and said, "Sigh perhaps. Actually, I don't have much confidence in myself." "Don't worry about this, Xiaohua. If it was me, I would also give it a try. Even if it's young Miss, she will definitely let you treat her." Qiutong didn't stand on ceremony with Zhang Xiaohua and directly said what she meant. "Oh, by the way, Xiaohua, Divine Dr. Tang seems to have found something wrong with the acupoints on young Miss's head. He has been examining young Miss's head for a long time. I think that's why he asked if we invited the Misty Hall's people." Qiutong added, "Moreover, if he suspects the people from Shixin Peak, you are also new to Shixin Peak, so he will probably suspect you too." Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said with a smile, "Sister Qiutong, you don't have to worry about this. I'm just a small character in the pill repository hall. Even if I walk in front of Divine Dr. Tang, he might not even look at me." Qiutong was relieved and said, "That's good. However, you still have to be careful." She then sighed and said, Divine Dr. Tang is already the most skilled doctor in Lingxiang Peak. If even he can't do it, do we have to ask the hierarch for help? But this is not an injury or an internal injury. Even if the hierarch comes, what can he do?" Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. She thought to herself, if the hierarch or other elders who have cultivated the immortal Tao come, won't they be able to see through the acupoints I sealed on young Miss's head? However, she immediately denied it. If I'm afraid that the people of Lingxiang Peak will see through my identity as an immortal Tao cultivator, and I don't care about young Miss's life, then how can I call myself Xiaoxia? She then reminded Qiutong, "Sister Qiutong, if the hierarch or anyone from Lingxiang Peak asks about this acupoint, just say that you don't know. Don't worry, Xiaohua. I didn't even say anything about Divine Dr. Tang, let alone the others." Qiutong said seriously, "But young Miss's condition today is similar to yesterday. Do you think Divine Dr. Tang is exaggerating? Zhang Xiaohua had already seen it before, so she nodded. And I think so too. Young Miss can delay it for a dozen days without any problems. Will you be able to find the pills after a dozen days? Qiu Tong was still worried. Definitely. Zhang Xiaohua nodded firmly. After leaving Oyan's place, Zhang Xiaohua did not return to the Misty Hall. Instead, he went straight to the pill room and carefully looked after the pill furnace. Oyan did not have much time left, and this furnace of pills was the only method Zhang Xiaohua knew of to save her life. If the pills were ruined, Zhang Xiaohua would not have the time to refine a second furnace. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly remembered that he had two 8 trigrams purple gold furnaces. If he refined the pills together, wouldn't he have a better chance of success? However, this thought disappeared in a flash. He only had half of his true qi left, and refining one furnace of spirit awakening pills took a lot of effort. How could he spare the energy to refine a second furnace at the same time? Instead of being distracted, he might ruin the 2 furnaces of pills. It was better to focus on refining the first furnace of pills. Zhang Xiaohua sat on the futon and closed his eyes to comprehend the Tao of talismans. From time to time, he would release his divine sense to look at the medicinal liquid in the furnace. The fusion of the medicinal liquid was similar to that of the previous pills. It was a little dangerous at the beginning, but the process was stable. In the afternoon, Zhang Xiaohua remembered what he told Zhang Xiaohu yesterday. Should he bring He Tianshu to his backyard? Seeing that everything was normal in the furnace, Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and went straight to the front mountain of Shixing Peak. This time, Zhang Xiaohua did not show himself. He only released his divine sense to determine the direction. He went straight to Zhang Xiaohu's small courtyard. Seeing that there was no one else in the courtyard, he jumped out. Using his divine sense, he saw Zhang Xiaohua sitting on the bed, and the other person sitting on a recliner. Wasn't that He Tianshu? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and thought, didn't I make it clear yesterday? If we were to meet in the small room in the backyard, I wouldn't need to see anyone. I only asked second brother to come. Why is Captain He still in this room today? At this time, He Tianshu laughed and said, Marshal Nishang, are you done joking? This morning, you came to find me and said that you haven't seen me for a long time, and wanted to talk to me. You can say whatever you want, but why did you have to send me here? You only said a few words and asked me if I wanted to heal my joints and meridians. I thought you were running a fever and talking nonsense, but you still want me to wait here for your helper? Hee, if you can heal your joints and meridians, why don't you heal your own injuries first? I heard from the disciples that your ethereal divine art has no more internal energy. Why are you practicing the Yuhuan Sutra now? That is the Xiangxiang Sutra taught women to practice. I've been waiting for a whole day. Where's your helper? Besides Chang'e and Chen Chen, who else can help you? He Tianshu laughed and said, you're all so clever. Chang'e was actually tricked by you. Oh right, what benefits did you get in the Yulon Grand Canyon? You actually made some whitening elixir? I say, you're not a disciple of our pharmaceutical hall. Why are you making elixirs? You're wasting medicinal herbs for no reason. This listening to He Tianshu's nagging, Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. He anxiously looked outside the door. This Zhang Xiaohua always came at noon. Why did she come so late today? Yes, it was not easy for him to trick He Tianshu into coming here. He also painted a big picture for him. He just wanted to wait for Zhang Xiaohua to come and treat him. If he didn't come, how could he treat him? Zhang Xiaohua listened carefully outside the room, and she already understood a little. She could not help but smile. Second brother's move is really amazing. I'll be his assistant, and he'll be the main physician. No one can see any flaws in his plan. He's really cunning. I didn't even think about it. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua quickly walked in with a smile on her face. She said loudly, Captain He, long time no see. How have you been? Captain He? He Tianshu was stunned. He didn't know how many years he hadn't used this title. When he got up and saw Zhang Xiaohua quickly approaching, he couldn't help but be stunned. His right hand drooped on the recliner and slightly raised a finger. He said in surprise, You, Zhang Xiaohua? Then he looked up and down. Are you Zhang Xiaohua? Why do you look exactly like him a few years ago? Zhang Xiaohua walked closer and bowed deeply. That's me, Captain He. I'm Zhang Xiaohua from Huanxi Manor. How is this possible? He Tianchu still couldn't believe it. He turned to look at Zhang Xiaohu and said, Martial nephew Zhang Xiaohu. Is he the helper you mentioned? Is he really your younger brother, Zhang Xiaohua? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, That's him. There's no doubt about it. But didn't you say that he? Oh, but this He Tianchu mumbled a few words and believed it. No matter how tall he was, why did his face not change? Why was it not the yin and yang that he had imagined? Since his second brother had said so, what was there to hesitate about? After thinking for a moment, He Tianchu asked, Zhang Xiaohua, do you still only know that set of messy fist techniques? Chapter 764. Zhang Xiaohua's heart warmed up. He immediately remembered that he was still an ignorant country boy back then, pestering He Tianchu to teach him fist techniques in the open space of Huanxi Mountain Villa. He Tianchu had taught him many times in a row, but he would forget the scene after a night. At that time, not only He Tianchu, Nie and the rest, even he himself thought that he was a useless martial artist and was not suitable to practice fist techniques. Of course, after so many years of experience, he discovered the power of the Big Dipper magical fist and its unclear effects. Zhang Xiaohua also vaguely understood why he had forgotten many moves back then, and only remembered a few. In the end, these moves formed a perfect fist technique. A fist technique that could refine the bones of the whole body. It could even be said that this was the ancestor of all the fist techniques in the pugilistic world. All the fist techniques evolved from the moves of the Big Dipper magical fist. All of this started from He Tianchu teaching Zhang Xiaohua Arhut fist move by move. At that time, what kind of spirit did He Tianchu have? And now, he was lying lazily on the chair, unable to move his limbs. Although his face was full of surprise, it could not hide the decadence in his eyes. Zhang Xiaohua walked a few steps and came to He Tianchu's side. He squatted down and said, Yes, Captain He, you still remember? I thought you had forgotten about my scandal back then. He Tianchu smiled and said, He, how could I forget? Although I don't specialize in teaching the medicine hall disciples martial arts, I have taught dozens of people martial arts. But I have never seen anyone as stupid as you. The Arhut fist is the simplest fist technique in the pugilistic world. Even a 5 or 6-year-old child from the Young Eagle Hall would be able to do it pretty well after watching it a few times. But you cough. At this point, He Tianchu could not help but cough. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and held his hand. He put his finger on his pulse and said, Until now I still don't know why. You don't know. Later on, I tried to practice the Arhut fist again, but it was still the same. However, the sword technique is still okay and I can't forget it. Besides, how many disciples in the pugilistic world are as stupid as me? You're lucky to have met me. Ha! He Tianchu coughed and laughed. But things are different now. Even if I know all kinds of fist techniques, I won't be your opponent. You can defeat me with just one finger. Cough. Even if you are not my match now, even if your martial arts are better in the future and you can defeat me, you are still my enlightened teacher. You can't escape this title even if you want to. Of course, the premise is that you are willing to admit that you are the enlightened teacher of this stupid disciple of mine. With a smile, Zhang Xiaohua lifted her finger from his wrist, patted his palm and said, Tisk tisk. He Tianchu smacked his lips with a yearning look on his face. Back then, when I learned martial arts, I didn't think it was that great. But when I lost it, I realized that being able to move, fight, and jump around was really a free and easy thing to do. Sai, that's right. Back then, you were quite talented in practicing the ethereal steps. It was much better than fist techniques. How are you now? Yes, Captain, he is right. What you have now is the most precious thing to you. It is the easiest thing to overlook. Although you can't move now and can't practice martial arts, you can still watch the sunrise and sunset, and watch the flowers bloom and wither. There are many people in the pharmacy with you. Can't they even enjoy this? Zhang Xiaohua didn't answer the question about the ethereal steps. Instead, she changed the topic. Sai, that's right. Let's not talk about the others. Just the few people who were with you in the Huanxi manor at this point. He Tianshu became even more depressed. Zhang Xiaohu said in a deep voice. Martial uncle he, the past is the past. Perhaps memories can only give us more motivation to move forward. We can only live better and rebuild the Misty School. Only then can we be worthy of sect leader O and our dead brothers. He Tianshu's eyes flashed and he said with a smile. Xiaohu's words are very encouraging now. Listening to his tone, he is close to Zhang Qingyue. Martial uncle he, please don't joke with that disciple. Martial uncle Zhang is a dragon among men. He is the eldest disciple of our Misty School's headmaster. He is not on the same level as me. He Tianshu narrowed his eyes and said, people can change. The level of martial arts is not a problem. As long as the opportunity is there, even a chick can become a phoenix. Oh, alright, let's not talk about it. Didn't you want to give me a surprise and let me return to how I was before? Your precious brother's helper is already here. Why aren't you making a move? Zhang Xiaohu looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, send martial uncle he to the small house at the back. I will be there in a while. Zhang Xiaohua also said in a serious manner, okay. Do you need me to prepare anything? No need. Just send martial uncle he over. I will bring some things over. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and stood up. He smiled and said, Captain he, sit tight. As he spoke, he grabbed the two ends of the reclining chair. Without using much strength, he lifted He Tianshu up along with the chair, and walked out of the house with ease. He Tianshu was flabbergasted. He already knew that Zhang Xiaohua was strong, but he was still surprised that Zhang Xiaohua could lift him up as if he was holding a feather. He couldn't help but ask in a low voice, Zhang Xiaohua, your arms can lift a few hundred kilograms of stone? This Zhang Xiaohua was a little hesitant. He didn't want to lie to He Tianshu, but he didn't want to expose his strength. He only said vaguely, actually, it's not that I don't want to tell Captain He. I haven't lifted any stone weights in a long time. It should be a lot more than before. Yes, that's not bad. You are strong, so your fist techniques don't need to be too complicated. Your messy fist techniques are the most suitable. I forgot that your second brother asked when high for an inner force cultivation method called reckless bull force for you. How is your cultivation going? Zhang Xiaohua sighed. Captain, he is wise. This disciple doesn't seem to be suitable for cultivating martial arts. To be honest, this reckless bull force only allows me to sense qi. I haven't made much progress in the past few years. Yes, this is also within my expectations. Don't be discouraged. Only 4 or 5 years have passed. You still have a long life ahead of you. Just cultivate slowly. You just have to remember that as long as you work hard, you can grind an iron rod into a needle. There is nothing in this world that cannot be done. Zhang Xiaohua nodded her head and said, that's right. I hope, Captain, he can set a good example for your disciple. Even if my limbs are crippled and my inner force is crippled, I still know more than you. Since I am able to meet you again, I will teach you martial arts in the future. Oh right, you don't know. After you left, I have comprehended a lot of the ethereal steps. If there is a chance in the future, I will pass it all to you. He Tianshu looked at Zhang Xiaohua affectionately and said, that's great. Captain He, I have been wanting to cultivate the ethereal steps for the past few years, but I just couldn't find the trick. Now that I have met you, the heavens have given me a chance. Please don't think that I am stupid in the future. Don't say that, don't say that. The clumsy bird flies first. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to achieve great things. Oh right, actually, with your great strength and weak inner force cultivation, you can consider cultivating the outer sex cultivation method. You can follow Shernyo's cultivation path. Yes, Shernyo is now like me, but he is even more unbearable. If you can get his guidance, not only will it be your fortune, but it will also give him a little hope. Sure. Martial uncle, is he still drinking? Zhang Xiaohua hesitated for a moment and asked. Sigh yes, with Martial Uncle Su. Martial Uncle Su? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Who is this person? Just as she was about to ask, they had already arrived at the door of the small house in the backyard. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Captain He, Let's go in first and wait for my second brother. Hee, so what if we wait for a year or so? I want to see what kind of miraculous technique Zhang Xiaohu has. Oh right, Zhang Xiaohua. Is your second brother confident? He has been in Shishing Peak for so many years, but I have never seen him say that he has some ability after coming back from the Yulon Grand Canyon. Zhang Xiaohua was amused. She still had to think about it, but he suddenly said the answer. Therefore he climbed up the pole and nodded, maybe. I also met him in the Yulon Grand Canyon. At that time, he was extremely brave and saved me from a group of wild beasts. He might have had some fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to joke about Captain He's injuries. You also went to the Yulon Grand Canyon? He Tianshu asked curiously. Oh right, why did you come to the fragrant cult? I was so happy to see you just now that I forgot to ask. This Zhang Xiaohua was about to answer when she heard Zhang Xiaohu at the door say, Xiaohua came to the fragrant cult to find me. His story is very long. You two can slowly talk about it after Martial Uncle He's injury is healed. We don't have much time now, so it's better to hurry up. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said with a smile, my second brother is right. Captain He, we have a lot of time in the future, so let's talk about it slowly. He Tianshu smiled and nodded. Zhang Xiaohu walked in front of He Tianshu and glanced at Zhang Xiaohua. He bowed his head and said, Martial Uncle He, disciple will tell you the truth. Disciple is not proficient in this healing technique, and I don't have full confidence. It's just that, seeing our Misty School's martial uncles dispersing their cultivation, I feel very uncomfortable. Since disciple knows this technique, if disciple doesn't treat them, how can disciple face you? You mean, I can practice? He Tianshu immediately understood what Zhang Xiaohu meant. Yes, Martial Uncle He, you're right. Your meridians and dantian were damaged, and your joints were also crushed. This is the most serious injury. If you can be cured, then the injuries of the other martial uncles will not be a problem. If that's the case, why don't you pick your master, Wen Hai? He Tianshu said curiously. Chapter 765. Zhang Xiaohu didn't avoid it and said in a low voice, my master is a direct disciple of the Misty School. There must be a lot of spies on Shishing Peak watching him. Not to mention that I don't have confidence now. Even if I do, if my master disappears from his courtyard for a few days, or if his injuries have any obvious changes, wouldn't the spies on Lingxiang Peak be aware of it? You're right. Even the spies I've been keeping an eye on have only gradually disappeared in the past 2 years. If your master had made any movements, it would have been immediately known to others. However, if you have confidence, won't you treat your master? Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly. Martial Uncle He, what are you saying? Isn't it because I wanted to treat Martial Uncle's injuries that I tried my best? If it can be treated, of course, I will treat him. However, before I know the effect, everything is just empty talk. Well, who asked me to be the most seriously injured, but also the most insignificant? He Tianshu nodded and said, of course, I have to promise you. Zhang Xiaohu was overjoyed and said, however, I have already said the risks. If it can't be cured, you can't blame me. You little brat, I'm already like this. Even if you can't cure me, what can you do? Even if you want my life, if I can learn a little from it, I will die in peace. Zhang Xiaohua immediately smiled and said, since second brother dares to call Captain He, naturally you have some confidence. You don't have to worry about life and death. Hearing Zhang Xiaohua say so, Zhang Xiaohu also smiled and said, see Martial Uncle He, this is what your favorite disciple said. He is quite confident in me. To hell with his talent. Even if you want me to take him in, I wouldn't want him. Besides, he's your younger brother. If he doesn't speak to you, why would he speak to me? He Tianshu pretended to be angry. Zhang Xiaohua didn't mind and said, second brother, I heard you say that in order to realign the joints that have already healed, you need to crush the joints again. Isn't it too painful? Do you want to seal Captain He's acupoints? And you are right. Martial Uncle He, please forgive me. I have to seal your acupoints to avoid your pain, and also to avoid being discovered by Lingxiang Peak spies. This He Tianshu didn't want to seal his acupoints, but the pain of his joints being crushed was too unbearable. He also didn't want to suffer a second time. He only nodded and said, I hope you can succeed. Don't let me suffer a second time. Okay, then I'll offend you. Zhang Xiaohu slowly walked to He Tianshu's side and extended a finger. Using a very shallow amount of internal energy, he tapped on He Tianshu's acupuncture point. Seeing He Tianshu close his eyes, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, All right, my act as a cheat is over. It's time for the main character to come on stage. Zhang Xiaohua didn't hold back. She extended her index and middle fingers and randomly sealed all of He Tianshu's major acupoints. Zhang Xiaohu felt a wave of dizziness. He couldn't help but ask, Xiaohuayu, what kind of acupoint sealing technique is this? Enchanting finger. Zhang Xiaohua replied, If you want to learn it, I'll teach you later. We'll talk about it later. I still haven't finished learning the acupoint sealing techniques from Misty School. I'll talk about it when I have time. Oh right, Xiaohua. Last night I circulated the Ethereal Divine Art and Yuhuan Sutra for 36 times. I feel that my progress is much faster than just cultivating the Ethereal Divine Art. Do you think there's a risk of qi deviation? Zhang Xiaohua pondered for a moment and said, It shouldn't be, because you already had nearly 30 years of cultivation. Your Dantian was destroyed by Zhao Jian, but your Dantian was immediately repaired by the Meridian Nourishing Pill. Just take it that you didn't cultivate your internal strength for a few days. It should be normal for your cultivation speed to be fast now. Moreover, you still have the medicinal power of the Meridian Nourishing Pill and Yuhuan Pill in your body. They were refined when you were cultivating, so of course the internal strength produced is more than before. By the way, don't take the second Yuhuan Pill for the time being. You can take it when you have mastered the two different types of internal strength and can control it freely. And when you take it, you must call me. Okay. I think the new Deputy Hall Master of Lingxiang Peak will be here soon. I should study the nameless breathing method you gave me more. Don't let others see any flaws at once. Second brother is right. Tell second sister-in-law and Chen Chen not to reveal any flaws. After Zhang Xiaohua finished speaking, she carried He Tianshu to the bed that had already been made. She took off his clothes and used her hands and divine sense to check his joints that had been crushed earlier. She sighed and said, It's still a little late. If he was like you and second sister-in-law, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to use the bone-solidifying pill as soon as he was injured. Now that they have grown strong, I have no choice but to crush them. Sigh, crush them. Don't be soft-hearted. The fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the cold. If you don't suffer a little, how can you regain your freedom? Zhang Xiaohu advised. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and closed her eyes. She released her divine sense and crushed all of He Tianshu's joints that had grown strong, but could not be used from head to toe. Although He Tianshu's acupoints had been sealed, large beads of sweat still dripped down from his forehead. Even his entire body was covered in fine beads of sweat. Sigh, even our Zhang Xiaohua and Xiaoxia's foreheads were covered in a thin layer of sweat. After all, this method of crushing joints was used on the enemy. It was still a little heartache to use it on someone familiar. After the time it took to eat a meal, Zhang Xiaohua straightened her back, opened her eyes, and twisted her neck. Zhang Xiaohu asked with concern, How is it? Fortunately, the first step was not a big mistake. All of the injured joints have been crushed. Sai, this work is really not for humans. Why didn't it take much effort to crush other people's joints in the past? While muttering, Zhang Xiaohua asked, Second sister-in-law, have you found the splints I asked you to find? They're over there. They're under the hay. As Zhang Xiaohu spoke, he walked over and took out several splints and cloth belts. He asked, Should I put them on Martial Uncle He now? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head. There's no hurry. Let me apply the bone-congealing pill on him first. As he spoke, he took out a jade bottle from his bosom and poured out a few elixirs. His true energy flowed through the elixirs and turned them into elixirs. Then he spread the elixirs evenly on the joints that He Tianshu had just crushed. After that, he took the splint and cloth from Zhang Xiaohu and tied the joints firmly. After that, She put on He Tianshu's clothes and turned to Zhang Xiaohu, second brother. Captain, his joints have been fixed. Before he recovers, we can only let him lie here alone. He mustn't move casually. If they grow out of place, we'll have to crush them again. If we crush too many joints, even the bone-congealing pill might not be able to restore them to their original state. Yes, don't worry about that. I've already told the disciple who serves him to accompany me here. I'll let him go when I recover. That disciple is from our Misty School, so he knows what to say and what not to say. Okay. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and walked to the front of the bed. She sat down and took out another bottle of pills. She poured out a pill and placed it in He Tianshu's mouth. A faint medicinal fragrance wafted out and immediately dispersed in the small room. Zhang Xiaohu could smell it clearly. It was the bone-congealing pill that he had used earlier. When the bone-congealing pill dissolved in He Tianshu's body, Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to delay. She circulated her true energy and sent the pill's medicinal properties through He Tianshu's blood vessels to every joint in his body. The medicinal power of the bone-solidifying pill, and a sliver of starlight that Zhang Xiaohua did not know where it came from, left behind a small amount of starlight. Every time it passed through a joint, a small amount would be left behind. At a speed that was not visible to the naked eye or divine sense, the small bone-solidifying pill that Zhang Xiaohua had applied on the outside of the joint also repaired the joint from the outside. The small bone-solidifying pill that Zhang Xiaohua had applied on the outside of the joint also repaired the joint from the outside. While evenly distributing the medicinal properties of the bone-congealing pill, Zhang Xiaohua also discovered a magical use of true energy. Immortal true energy wasn't the same as martial inner qi. It could only circulate within the meridians. Even if the true energy left the meridians, it could still circulate within the body. The medicinal properties of the bone-congealing pill were directly sent into the bones of the joints using true energy. It was much more direct and effective than using other methods to reach the joints through oral ingestion. Even so, it took a lot of effort for Zhang Xiaohua to send the appropriate medicinal properties to He Tianshu's joints. After an unknown amount of time, Zhang Xiaohua felt a trace of exhaustion before she finally completed the most important step. Zhang Xiaohua opened her eyes and smiled tiredly at Zhang Xiaohu, who was standing quietly at the side. He didn't dare to make a sound. Second brother, I've already consumed the bone-congealing pill. From the looks of it, everything is normal. Let me rest for a while. We'll talk later. After she finished speaking, she closed her eyes and silently circulated the god's guidance to recover her exhausted divine sense. After a long time, she opened her eyes and smiled. All right, second brother. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. I've already sent the medicinal properties to all of Team Leader He's joints. This bone-congealing pill is very useful for your and second sister-in-law's injuries. Logically speaking, Team Leader He's injuries should be able to heal as well. Even if he doesn't fully recover, I think he should be able to move like a normal person? Zhang Xiaohu nodded solemnly and said, I hope so. As long as he can move like a normal person, I think senior uncle he will be very happy. Moreover, the hundreds of disciples in our Misty School can see hope for the future. What? Hundreds of disciples? Zhang Xiaohua asked in surprise. Why are there so many? Zhang Xiaohu glanced at Zhang Xiaohua and said, This is only a small number. In addition, there are more than 1,000 disciples whose dantian was damaged, and their inner strength was crippled. Do you think that our Misty School is the same as the evil tiger gang in Pingyang City? Is it just a small gang? It's just that Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and smiled bitterly. With your brother's 2 hands, I don't know when he will be able to save more than 1,000 people. As she spoke, He Tianshu, who was lying on the bed, seemed to be in extreme pain. His limbs were twitching and large beads of sweat were dripping down his forehead. Chapter 766. When Zhang Xiaohua saw He Tianshu's painful appearance, he was immediately shocked. When he gave the universal pill to Zhang Xiaohu the day before yesterday, he took on everything and thought that he had absolute confidence. In the end, if he hadn't thought of the method to dissolve the liquid, he didn't know what the consequences would have been. Therefore, when he saw He Tianshu's appearance, Zhang Xiahua thought that he had done something wrong again. He immediately floated forward and poured his true qi into He Tianqu's body. Then he released his divine sense. But just as Zhang Xiaohua's true qi entered He Tianqu's meridians, He Tianqiu let out a long breath. His limbs relaxed and were limp on the side. Zhang Xiahua frowned. After checking with true qi and divine sense, there was nothing unusual about the joints that had just been crushed. Then he checked the rest of the body and found that everything was normal. Strange. Zhang Xiahua frowned. This was the first time that he had treated so many internal injuries in his joints. He didn't have much experience and didn't know why He Tianqiu was like this. Seeing Zhang Xiahua frowning and holding He Tianqiu's arm for a long time without letting go, Zhang Xiaohu whispered, "Xiahua, generally, treatment and medicine are done slowly. Just now, you used your internal force to dissolve the medicinal power of the bone-solidifying pill. Wasn't it too overbearing that his joints couldn't accept it for a while? For example, in the Yulon Grand Canyon, when you helped me dissolve the medicinal power of the meridian nourishing pill, I almost couldn't control the internal force that increased out of thin air. But Chang'e and Chen Chen dissolved the medicinal power by themselves, so such a thing didn't happen. Moreover, the healing of joints is a painful and itchy process. I often encounter it now, but it feels a little weak. Do you think Marshal Uncle he is also in this situation?" Zhang Xiahua nodded and said, "That's right. Step by step is the way of the king. I may be a little impatient by pulling up the seedlings to help them grow. If the medicinal power is too strong, the pain will probably double. However, Captain He's joints have been growing wrongly for so many years. It won't be good if I don't use heavy medicine. I hope he can endure it." After thinking for a while, he said, "In order to prevent any accidents from happening to Captain He, I will not be able to understand his acupoints. Let's see how it goes tomorrow." "All right." Zhang Xiaohu nodded and said, "I'll come over often." "Oh, that's right. This acupoint will automatically unseal after 24 hours. You have to come earlier. I don't have enough internal energy right now, so I probably won't be able to seal Marshal Uncle He's acupoint for too long." Zhang Xiahua smiled mysteriously and said proudly, "It's not that I'm looking down on second brother, but you don't need to touch this acupoint. Moreover, it won't open automatically for 24 hours. This point of view was far beyond Zhang Xiaohu's understanding. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "Quick, tell me what's going on?" "Damn," Zhang Xiahua curled her lips and said, "You really don't know anything. This is your brother's acupoint." "Ah," Zhang Xiaohu said gloomily. "Is it that simple?" "Yeah. I don't think there are many people in the world who can unseal the acupoint that I sealed. Even if it's 24 hours, it won't automatically unseal." Zhang Xiaohu immediately said with a calm face, "Xiahua, is this the bewitching finger that you were talking about?" "Hehe, I didn't understand. You said you were going to teach it to me. Cough cough, I'm bored these 2 days. If you have time, I don't mind teaching it to you." "Don't, my bewitching finger isn't some misty school's secret technique. You should learn from your master first. I'm still waiting to teach it to my own disciple." "Your disciple?" Zhang Xiaohu didn't seem to laugh out loud and said, "Look at how old you are and you're already thinking about having a disciple. It's better for your second brother to take advantage of others." Looking at her second brother's shameless appearance, what else could Zhang Xiahua say? She only rolled her eyes and said, "This bewitching finger requires a person's internal energy. Wait until your internal injuries have healed and you've recovered to the same level as when you were in the Yulon Grand Canyon. Then I'll raise your internal energy to a higher level before we talk about this finger technique." "Damn," Zhang Xiaohu said, "then why are you still talking about it? You're making my heart itch." Zhang Xiaohua laughed and took out the bewitching finger manual from her bosom. She threw it into his arms and said, "Look at your appearance. When it comes to martial arts, you seem to be more anxious than when you see second sister-in-law. Here, I'll give it to you now so that you won't bother me every day." "Ha!" Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. He opened the bewitching finger manual and carefully looked at it. He asked curiously, "Xiaohua, when did you become so generous? This can't be fake, right?" "You?" Zhang Xiaohua was greatly embarrassed and acted as if she wanted to snatch it. You're still pretending to be innocent after getting a bargain. When did I have a second brother, who doesn't understand his younger brother, as well as you? Zhang Xiaohu hid it in his bosom, and didn't even look at it. He said mysteriously, Xiaohua, tell me honestly, where did you get this manual? Second brother is telling you, as the saying goes. If you don't borrow a book, you can't read it. In the future you should borrow more books like this. Is that so? Zhang Xiaohua glanced at him and said, then when I have time, I'll go to your Misty School's library pavilion and borrow it to read. Don't, Zhang Xiaohu said with a nervous face. Isn't the library pavilion our family's own? Do you still need to borrow it? It's better to borrow it from someone else. He, Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, this book was taken from your Misty School's library pavilion. When did you go to the library pavilion? Or did Baso ask you to go there? Zhang Xiaohu asked curiously, but then his eyes turned and he thought of something and said, You went to the Righteous Alliance's territory. Zhang Xiaohua laughed again and patted second brother's shoulder, saying, Isn't that our family's back garden? I've always wanted to go there. Back then, Baso was there, so I was really embarrassed. Now that there's a change of people, why should I be polite with them? This enchanting finger was borrowed from there. How satisfying. How satisfying. I really need to read it. Zhang Xiaohu laughed. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Zhang Xiaohua said seriously, Second brother, you can practice this secret manual. Second sister-in-law and Chen can also practice it, but it's better not to spread it. This thing is probably the precious treasure of the Righteous Alliance. If too many people practice it, it will be discovered by the Righteous Alliance. It's not good for you and me. Also, I'm going to leave this secret manual to my disciple. You have to return it to me in the future. I know. Isn't it your disciple? Who knows where he is? When you find him, I'll definitely give it to you. Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand and seemed to be very nervous. It was impossible for Zhang Xiaohua to find any disciple in the next few years. Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. Her second brother really knew her well. The immortal inheritance was extraordinary. She was just a beginner and did not have the ability to accept any disciples. Let's go, second brother. It's getting late. You're not going to mend Master He's meridians? Zhang Xiaohu asked in surprise. Well, Captain He's situation, it's better to observe for a few more days. I'm afraid something will go wrong if I rush for success. I don't want to add more feet to the snake. Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of lingering fear. Well, that's it for now. Are you going back to the small courtyard of the Pill Tower Hall? Well, I haven't been back for a few days. I have to go and see if there's anything wrong. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, You go first, second brother. I'll go out soon. Oh, what can happen to you there? It's just a place where the disciples of the Misty Hall practice their martial arts. Zhang Xiaohu sneered and then led the way out. When they reached the door, he laughed and said, Did no one cause trouble for you these few days? But no one said anything. Zhang Xiaohu only turned around and said, Why is there no sign of her? Zhang Xiaohu was very surprised. He looked around and really did not see anyone. He had to test the waters and said, Xiaohua, where are you? Are you still playing cat and mouse with me? Don't mess around, you'll kill me. Unfortunately, only He Tianshu was lying on the bed in the whole room, and no one answered his question. Zhang Xiaohu scratched his head and thought, This Xiaohua is really good at playing cat and mouse. I don't know how she ran away. Amazing. Zhang Xiaohua used the earth escape art to find a quiet place. Then he pretended to admire the azaleas as he walked towards the small house in the Pill Repository Hall. It was already dusk and smoke was rising. The flowers and trees of the Shirxin Peak were covered in a layer of red and gray under the setting sun. It looked delicate and beautiful, but also a little sad. When she was about to reach the small courtyard, a man suddenly jumped down from a big tree in the distance. He was frowning and looked at her with a hateful face. Zhang Xiaohua was looking at the scenery and did not release her divine sense. She was startled when the man jumped down. Looking at the man's muscular appearance, she immediately pretended to be afraid and said timidly, Hero, This little one has no money. You're robbing me like this, you're wrong. When the man heard this, he almost fell down. He looked at his empty hands, his face full of sweat, and said in an evil voice, "You little brat from the Tuadan Hall, which eye of yours thinks your grandpa is an evil man who would rob you? How can you frame grandpa for no reason? Be careful, I'll go to the Pill Tower Hall and sue you for slander." Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of fear. He looked left and right, up and down. After a long while he said, "Hero has come out. This attire is from the Misty Hall. Oh, and he doesn't have an axe. Otherwise, he would be the same as the bandits I met earlier." The man was completely defeated. He took 2 steps forward and said, "Grandpa is not here to rob you today." "Bah, I've never robbed anyone before, and I won't in the future." Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, "Then what are you here for?" "Grandpa wants to vent his anger on you," the man said as he reached out his big hand to grab Zhang Xiaohua's neck. Zhang Xiaohua frowned. He didn't mind beating this man down, but the problem was that he was a gentleman, and he was Xiaoxia. He had to be polite before resorting to force. He had to ask for the reason. If there was any misunderstanding and second brother's martial brothers were hurt, it wouldn't be good. Chapter 767. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua dodged the man's palm and said with a smile, "Sir, even if you want to find trouble with me, you should at least give me a reason. Even if it's groundless, you should at least let me know. You're trying to get physical with me right from the start. This doesn't seem to be the fine tradition of your Misty Hall. You're just a bastard from the Pill Tower Hall. Of course I know what you've done. If you hadn't offended my junior sister of the Misty Hall, how would I have thought of finding trouble with you? You should know it yourself by patting your chest." This guy's mouth was immoral, but he immediately pointed out the reason he was here. It was because of the junior sister that Zhang Xiaohua had offended. Zhang Xiaohua sighed helplessly. Speaking of offending the junior sisters of the Misty Hall, which one of them hadn't been smeared with Zhang Xiaohu's bathwater? Who knew which one this burly man was talking about? Of course, this wasn't a reason for Zhang Xiaohua to sigh. This was a secret that Zhang Xiaohua and his brother strictly guarded. Even Chang'e didn't know about it, so how could this burly man know? What Zhang Xiaohua sighed was, "It's understandable that you want to win the favor of your junior sister, but you can't vent your anger on me. It's really immoral to build the happiness of the two of you on my pain." Zhang Xiaohua was also depressed and unconsciously labeled them as a moral couple. She thought to herself, "It's fine if you two are jealous, but why do you have to drag me into it? Could it be that you can only show your masculinity by bullying an outsider like me? Maybe after breaking my arms and legs, you will still try to curry favor with others." The more Zhang Xiaohua thought about it, the angrier she got. She couldn't stand those who bullied the weak. Now that this burly man was bullying her, who was obviously a minor disciple of the Pill Tower Hall, she was even angrier. At this moment, the burly man changed his grip into a fist and a big fist smashed towards Zhang Xiaohua's face. How can this be? When Zhang Xiaohua heard the wind from the punch, he knew that the man had used 80% of his strength. If it was an ordinary disciple of the Pill Repository Hall, he wouldn't be able to dodge it and might even be crippled. Thus he didn't reply. He had a plan in mind and stretched out his fist, placing it in the direction of the man's fist. He didn't dodge or use any strength. The man frowned slightly, but his eyes were filled with a smile. The momentum of his fist did not decrease in the slightest as it directly smashed towards Zhang Xiaohua's small and skinny fist. To be honest, even though he had used 80% of his strength, he still had some strength left. If Zhang Xiaohua was unable to dodge it, he would not dare to smash his fist on her head as it could easily kill her. All he wanted was to teach Zhang Xiaohua a lesson and win a smile from the beauty. Now that he saw Zhang Xiaohua calmly punching him, he thought that breaking the bones of this annoying disciple of the Pill Repository Hall wouldn't incur any punishment from the law enforcement disciples of the Ethereal Hall. Right? Just as the burly man's junior sister's smile blossomed, he heard the expected sound of his fingers breaking. Before his smile could blossom, it was immediately strangled by the immense pain from his fist. Ouch! The man couldn't help but cry out in pain as he held his injured right hand. He stared at Zhang Xiaohua in astonishment and said, You after saying you for a long time he still couldn't say anything. Zhang Xiaohua glanced at the man's fingers and knew that a few of them were broken. It was only a slight piercing pain, and it was much lighter than the injury she suffered at the Lotus Flower Escort Agency. The corner of her mouth curled up as she scolded. Uncle, how do you feel? Do you feel that you deserve it? The man seemed to be still pondering why his fist had smashed into something as hard as a rock, and not an ordinary person's fist like he had imagined. Therefore, he didn't answer for a moment. Seeing the man's slow reaction, Zhang Xiaohua rolled her eyes and smiled. Uncle, are you the senior brother that Tian was talking about? The one who always strikes up a conversation with her? Yes. Yes, how did you know? Nonsense. On the surface, I have offended 2 female disciples of the Misty Hall at second brother's place. One is Xiao Tian, and the other is junior sister Yi, who has a huge number of pimples on her face. Even if I used my heel to think, the possibility of it being Xiao Tian was very high. Hee. How did this guy get into the Misty School? Don't tell me that they didn't check if he was as stupid as an ox. AI, this young master was incomparably smart, and was even rejected by the Misty School. How did this guy get into the inner circle of the Misty School? The people who recruited disciples back then were really blind. Thinking about how she was rejected by the Lotus Escort Agency and the Misty School, Zhang Xiaohua felt that it was unfair. She couldn't help but have evil thoughts. She smiled and said, This kind of thing, how could I not know? Tian also told me that she ignored you, but you still showed up in front of her every day or every other day. Although you didn't speak sometimes and only looked at her from behind, she saw it all. She also hinted to you many times, but you didn't understand, or maybe you didn't want to understand at all. AI, yes, junior sister Xiao. She halfway through, the man's face changed dramatically. Ignoring his injured right hand, his left hand pointed at Zhang Xiaohua and roared. You? How did you know? How can you call her Tian? Say it. Zhang Xiaohua shrugged and said helplessly, Uncle, have you not studied before? Don't you know that the ancients said, 1,000 miles of marriage is linked by a thread? If fated, 1,000 miles will meet, if not, we will not know each other? Oh, there's also love at first sight. Zhang Xiaohua used all the idioms she knew and looked at the man with a smile that wasn't a smile. How is this possible? How could junior martial sister Xiao take a fancy to a pretty boy like you? The man was both shocked and angry, and his voice was trembling. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and wagged her tail. She almost took out her fan and said sourly, Beautiful women like little white faces, this is an ancient saying. I think even someone like you who hasn't studied for many days knows this. Tell me, if a female disciple like Tian doesn't like a little white face like me, why would she like a brute like you? The man almost flew into a rage and was about to punch again, but the moment he moved, it affected the place where his broken bones were, causing it to hurt even more. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, What's more, this little white face is even fiercer than you. Why wouldn't she like me? When the man heard this, he was so angry that his eyes turned red. He gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. That's about it, hee. Zhang Xiaohua secretly felt good, but she still said, What? You don't believe me? What's there to not believe? If Tian wasn't interested in me, why would she tell me about you? If I didn't hear about you, I would know that she was talking about you the moment I saw you. Sigh, if you still don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. Why don't you go ask Tian yourself? Maybe you'll only give up if she tells you personally. After saying this, she looked like she wanted to help but couldn't. Sure enough, the man was fooled. He jumped up high and didn't even remember the pain in his finger. He said, I naturally don't believe it. We have been brother and sister for so many years. How could she possibly fall in love with someone else after seeing you a few times? I will go ask her now. Towards the end, his voice became softer and softer, as if he agreed with Zhang Xiaohua's words of love at first sight. Without waiting for him to finish, he immediately turned around and rushed towards the direction of the Misty Hall. Zhang Xiaohua watched the man's back disappear quickly, and he could vaguely see the commotion for a while. With a smile on his face, he shouted without turning his head, Senior brother Du, you've been watching this show for a long time. It's time to pay some copper coins. Before he finished speaking, a tall figure floated down from a big tree at the side. With a surprised look on his face, he asked, Junior brother Ren, when did you discover me? It seems like your eyes have never looked in my direction. Zhang Xiaohua cupped his fists and said, When senior brother Du came out from the direction of my courtyard, I saw it. However, senior brother Du was unreasonable. At that time, you as his senior brother had yet to make a move, so why didn't you stop him? Don't tell me you like to hide in the tree and watch the two tigers fight? Oh right, I have been talking to your senior brother for a long time, and I still don't know his name. Is this how the disciples of the Misty Hall are taught? There is no basic etiquette at all. Du Feng's face was a little embarrassed as he licked his lips and said, This senior brother is called Song Yinghao. His temper is a little rough, but his heart is not bad. Junior brother Ren, please don't lower yourself to his level. Faint. Zhang Xiaohua slapped her forehead. It was said that officials would protect each other, but in this Misty school, it was really everyone who protected each other. She couldn't help but sneer. If your heart is not bad, then you don't tell the reason why you want to grab someone's neck? If you tell the reason, then you hit someone's face with your fist? How could he not have a bad heart at this time? How can I not lower myself to his level? Hee, Du Feng said. Junior brother Ren's martial arts are very strong. Even Lu Qiaogang is not your opponent. This Song Yinghao probably won't be able to gain any advantage from your hands, so I didn't stop you. Moreover, all the disciples of the Misty Hall know about senior brother Song's temperament. On Shixing Peak, everyone gives him some leeway. If junior brother Ren can teach him a lesson, it may not be a bad thing. Moreover, didn't junior brother Ren teach him a lesson just now? Not only did he make him suffer, but he also instructed him to find junior sister Xiao. Presumably, tomorrow you will see Song Yinghao with a bloody nose and a swollen face. If I appear, how can I show junior brother Ren's wisdom? Alas, flattery is the only thing that will work. Senior brother Du, I don't dare to answer your words. Did you come to the courtyard to find me to flatter me? Zhang Xiaohua touched her nose and laughed. Of course not. I am looking for junior brother Ren because I have something important to discuss with him. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. What is it? Chapter 768. Seeing that Du Feng specially came to find him, Zhang Xiaohua was surprised and said, I heard that this pill-expanding hall is a peaceful place. How did I become so popular the moment I came? Could it be that you were all so hospitable in the past? Du Feng cupped his hands and said, Junior brother Ren has been here for a few days. It seems that there are many disciples who have disturbed you. If I have offended you in any way, I would like to apologize to you. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly supported him and said, One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. I haven't said anything to you yet, and you are in such a hurry to apologize. Could it be that you have something to ask of me? Being seen through by Zhang Xiaohua, Du Feng's face heated up, and he felt a little embarrassed. But soon after, he smiled and said, Actually, it's nothing much. I just want to ask if what you said to junior brother Xiao is true? Junior brother Xiao? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and asked, Who is this person? What did I say to him? Hearing this, the faint joy on Du Feng's face was immediately swept away. He had seen with his own eyes how Zhang Xiaohua had deceived Song Yinghao. He thought that what he knew was just Zhang Xiaohua casually replying. He could only smile and said, It's that guy who brought a group of young disciples to find trouble with you that day. His name is Xiaobinghe. Zhang Xiaohua slapped his forehead as he remembered. This matter had only happened a few days ago, but Zhang Xiaohua had encountered too many things in the past few days, so he had long forgotten about it. If Du Feng had mentioned Mu Tangshan, he might have immediately thought of it. However, if Xiaobinghe was only mentioned, he naturally did not have much of an impression of him. Zhang Xiaohua said embarrassedly, Senior brother Du, you must be joking. These days, there have been too many people who have come to find trouble with junior brother. Even if I am talented and intelligent, my memory is not clear. With senior martial brother Du's reminder, This little brother remembered. Du Feng was also speechless. Xiao Binghe bringing people to find trouble was wrong. Being ridiculed by Zhang Xiaohua. How could he say anything? His face was slightly red. In the dusk, it was hard to see clearly. He smiled and said, I wonder if what junior brother Ren said that day was true. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, I forgot that this kind of thing should be told to you. Telling them is like playing the lute to a cow. Oh, is senior brother Du talking about the matter of various herbs, or the matter of exchanging pills? This is of course the promise that junior brother Ren made that day. Promises? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, My Ren. At this point, she unconsciously rolled her eyes and smiled, saying softly, Senior brother Du, do you think what I said to them is true? Hearing Zhang Xiaohua's question, Du Feng could not help but secretly sigh. He cupped his hands and said, Since junior brother Ren said so, this one will not ask anymore. Let's go. Our Misty Hall's Vice Hall Master Qin wants to see you. Vice Hall Master Qin? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked and said, Why does she want to see me? Has she seen all the previous disciples of the Pill Tower Hall? Du Feng shook his head and said, Although this deal with the Pill Tower Hall is managed by Vice Hall Master Qin, she is very busy every day. How can she have the leisure to care about this? This one discussed with the other senior brothers, and reported the situation to Vice Hall Master Qin. It was only because she heard your nonsense that day that she felt it was inconceivable, and thought of asking me to ask if it was true. Oh, I see. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. Since it was not because of other things and it was not because of Chang'e and Chen Chen's report, it must be because of the Misty Hall's business. So she cupped her hands and said, Since Vice Hall Master Qin thinks so highly of this one, please lead the way, senior brother. Do I also want to admire Vice Hall Master Qin's majesty? Admire? Hearing this, Du Feng could not help but smile bitterly and said secretly, Can this word be used in this way? However, he just pretended not to hear it and said with a smile, Junior brother Ren, please follow me. Du Feng led Zhang Xiaohua forward. After a while, they came to a place that Zhang Xiaohua was very familiar with. It was the Misty Hall that Zhang Xiaohua entered when she came to Shixin Peak. At this time, there was only Aunt Qin in the Misty Hall. She was sitting on a chair with her head lowered and pondering. When she heard Du Feng's report, she was delighted and asked first, Did the disciple of the pill-expanding hall agree? Du Feng shook his head and said helplessly, He neither admitted nor denied. This disciple doesn't know what he is thinking, but... Then he told her what he had seen. Hearing this, Aunt Qin frowned and sighed. The disciple sent by the pill-expanding hall is really extraordinary. I knew it wouldn't be so simple. Let him in. When Zhang Xiaohua followed Du Feng into the Misty Hall, she saw Aunt Qin staring at her. She felt a little scared and went forward to salute. Disciple on duty of the pill-expanding hall, Ren Xiaoyao, pays his respects to Vice Hall Master Qin. Oh, Ren Xiaoyao, please get up. Aunt Qin returned the greeting and said, I wanted to see you for a long time, but there are many things to do in the hall. You saw it the day you arrived. The aftermath of the matter is very complicated, and we have just finished dealing with it. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Vice Hall Master Qin has a heavy responsibility, and is working hard for all the disciples of the Misty Hall. You are much busier than a small disciple of the pill-expanding hall like me. I can understand. Aunt Qin smiled and said, I heard from Du Feng that there were many people who went to find trouble with you these few days. Actually, I should have told them earlier. I have caused you to be wronged. I apologize to you here. Zhang Xiaohua quickly stood up and said, Vice Hall Master Qin, you don't have to be so polite. I am happy that they came to play with me. I am the only one here, and they came to find trouble with me because they were afraid I would be lonely. I am very happy and was about to thank you, but you apologized to me first. I can't accept it. In fact, he was cursing in his heart. Sigh, it's even easier to say, after aborting the child, you can see your parents. That's right. The previous disciples of the pill-expanding hall probably didn't receive such treatment. Nephew Ren, you must be joking. Aunt Qin closed the distance between them and said with a smile, Young disciples are full of vigor. If they meet an expert like Nephew Ren, they will also be happy. The two of you can compare notes with each other. It will be a good story between our Shishing Peak and Baiyu Peak. Zhang Xiaohua listened and smiled without saying anything. Aunt Qing glanced at Zhang Xiaohua and Du Feng and asked casually, I heard from Du Feng that you promised Xiaobinghe that they would fill all the wastelands in the Shishing Peak with herbs. And it would be best if the herbs were the ones that our Misty Hall is short of. You also promised that you would use the most reasonable method to exchange the pills for our herbs. You also said that during the exchange, they would personally come out and make the decision for you. Is this true? If it was usual, Zhang Xiaohua would have already agreed and admitted that it was true. But now, seeing Aunt Qin so serious and happy, she didn't know what medicine she was selling in her gourd. How could she dare to agree casually? She only said vaguely this. Well, it can't be considered as an agreement. It can't be considered as an agreement. I think Deputy Hallmaster Qin should know. Whether my promise is true or not. When Aunt Qin heard this, she immediately had a look of realization. With a smile she said, How can I not know what Nephew Ren is thinking? We are all sensible people. Since we have called you here and only Du Feng is present, you don't have to worry about anything. Tell me, how much of the benefits do you want? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and said dumbfounded. What do you mean by how much of the benefits? What is Deputy Hall Master Qin talking about? Vice Hall Master Qin smiled coldly and said, Virtuous Nephew Ren, it is not good for you to feign ignorance like this. We are all people of the pugilistic world. Since we all know this and I have already asked so clearly, Virtuous Nephew Ren, can't you name a price? Zhang Xiaohua's mind turned quickly. She immediately thought of what Xiaobinghe said that day and understood. She cupped her hands and said sincerely, Oh, so Deputy Hall Master Qin is talking about this. Actually, I don't have any thoughts. Even if Deputy Hall Master Qin doesn't give me any benefits, I am also willing to. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to finish, Aunt Qin waved her hand and said, Forget it. Don't put on a sanctimonious face in front of this old lady. I have seen many people like you. In this day and age, if you don't have any benefits for yourself, do you think you can promise so many benefits to our Misty Hall? Such conditions are obviously disadvantageous to our Pill Tower Hall. Aren't you just trying to get more benefits for yourself? Then he smiled and said, Nephew Ren is young and thin-skinned. This hall understands that very well. However, Nephew Ren's methods are vicious and your intentions are experienced. This hall admires you greatly. Speak, how much of the benefits do you want? Zhang Xiaohua waved her hands and said, Deputy Hall Master Qin really. You little brat, you're really giving us a hard time. Forget it, I'll tell you the truth. Our Misty Hall can only give you 30% of the benefits. You can consider it yourself and see if it's suitable. 30%? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. She calculated in her heart. 30% of the benefits meant that she had to keep 3 out of 10 elixirs while the Misty Hall could only keep 7. Wasn't it too much of a loss for them? Seeing Zhang Xiaohua hesitating, Deputy Hall Master Qin frowned and said, Nephew Ren, you have to think carefully. If you ask for an exorbitant price like the previous ones, even 30% will be gone. Zhang Xiaohua frowned even more. 30% was not a lot, but didn't the previous ones ask for more? 40%? 50%? Seeing Zhang Xiaohua still hesitating, Deputy Hall Master Qin gritted his teeth and said, Nephew Ren, forget it. You don't have to think about it. 40% is the final price. If you ask for more, you can only end up like your senior brother of the Pill Tower Hall. Let's break up. No. Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly waved her hands and said, I mean I don't. Zhang Xiaohua wanted to say no, but thinking of what Aunt Qin said just now, she had to change her words. I don't mean that. I just want 10%. What? 10%? Aunt Qin was surprised. She looked at Du Feng and said, Nephew Ren, don't play with me. Could it be that you want to cheat our Misty Hall with those fake and inferior pills? Chapter 769. Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. He didn't expect that after he was so kind and didn't want any benefits, she would say that he was pretending to be innocent. He took a step back and said that he only wanted 10% of the benefits, but she said that he was using fake and inferior medicinal pills to coax her. Moreover, Aunt Chin kept increasing the benefits she gave to others by 10%, as if she was afraid that others would beat her to it. Could it be that she was afraid that he would ask for too much? Or was she afraid that she wouldn't feel at ease if she didn't take 10% of the benefits? Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. What was wrong with people nowadays? Could it be that it was wrong to live a pure and simple life and pursue a little bit of freedom? Could Juoya, who was different from the rest, only by scheming, using some dirty tricks and playing some dirty tricks? Only then could you gain a trace of arrogance? Sighing, Zhang Xiaohua reluctantly said, Deputy Hall Master Qin, you're too sensitive. If so, I'll take 20% as a show of sincerity. We'll be on the same side in the future. Aunt Qin still shook her head. No, at least 30%. I won't feel at ease if it's less. If you come with elixirs that we don't know about, we'll be the ones who get hurt in the end. Trust. Zhang Xiaohua almost looked up to the sky and sighed. The lack of trust in the pill hall directly led to Aunt Qin only using 30% of the benefits to win the hearts of the disciples on duty. Only then could she feel some sense of security in her heart. But where did this trust come from? Cough. Zhang Xiaohua coughed and said, Let me ask you something that I shouldn't ask. Deputy Hall Master Qin, how much did my senior brothers want before? Aunt Qin was a little impatient. Didn't I say just now? There were 50%, 60%, and even 70% last time. Do you all think that our Shixin Peak is a medicine field that doesn't need copper coins and only wants to take advantage of our Misty Hall's disciples? Hee, Aunt Qin said in a somewhat threatening tone. Perhaps my Misty Hall doesn't have much authority, but we have disciples who aren't afraid of death. I'm sure you know what happened to your senior brothers. Breaking their arms and legs is a common occurrence, sigh. Zhang Xiaohua also sighed as if she had experienced the vicissitudes of life. She finally understood what Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxu meant when they were at Tianmu Peak. At that time, Zhang Xiaohua only thought that she had caught the eye of Elder Zixin. She had walked around Shixin Peak, and it was like a piece of wood being plated with a layer of gold. Although it was still wood on the inside, the surface was gold. The hall master would also put her in an important position. But now, it seemed that the position of Shixin Peak's guard was really a huge fat job. Think about it, from Aunt Qin's tone she had already bargained for 40%. If she insisted, it was possible for her to get 50%. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have any idea how many elixirs there were between Shixin Peak and Baiyu Peak. But the concept of 50% meant that the amount of elixirs that Zhang Xiaohua received every time was the same as the amount of elixirs used by all the disciples of Shixin Peak. What kind of concept was that? Even if one used their heels to think, they would know that it was so fat that it would definitely be blood splashing 3 feet, oil flowing 5 feet. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua wasn't stupid enough to think that she was the one who pocketed the 50% elixirs. Not to mention Elder Zixin. Even Deputy Hall Master Su, Yang Yao, and the others would have to rely on her to bribe them. At this time, thinking of Yang Yao's somewhat evasive words, Zhang Xiaohua was even more clear. Poor Misty Hall. Poor Shixin Peak. They had no freedom, no autonomy, no resistance, no escape, and could only bear it silently. They could only maintain their fake dignity by flattering the insignificant disciples on duty of Pill Expansion Hall. That dignity could be broken by a single toe of Pill Expansion Hall. And the consequence of that was to break the hands and feet of the disciples on duty. They didn't even dare to take their lives. What about the people behind these disciples on duty? The people of Misty Hall, from Yang Ruping to Mutang Chun, could only look at them with anger in their eyes. They couldn't do anything to them. And then, they could only wait to greet the next disciple on duty with a smiling face. They could only hope that this person would ask for 10% less of the benefits. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua's anger towards the harassment of the disciples of Misty Hall these days had already disappeared. They were also helpless and just wanted to give her some external pressure, hoping that she wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Alas, in fact, was it useful? If she didn't break the existing pattern and fight for the position of Shirxin Peak, even if they continued to harass her, as long as she asked for 10% more of the benefits, wouldn't they all make unnecessary sacrifices? But what did she need so many elixirs for? To keep them for herself? The elixirs she refined were many times better than these elixirs. Forget it, she didn't want to develop in Pill Expansion Hall. Let those vampires in Pill Expansion Hall go to hell. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua pondering, Aunt Qin also pondered. After a while she asked, "What do you think, Nephew Ren?" Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Well, since Aunt Qin gave me so much face, how could I refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit? I'll take the 30% of the benefits." Aunt Qin was incomparably delighted. She didn't expect this disciple on duty to be so easy to talk to. 30% of the benefits was something she had never dreamed of. 40% was her bottom line. If it was 50%, to be honest, she had no choice but to agree. Therefore, she still said in disbelief, "You really only want 30%. Don't you intend to keep some for yourself?" "Ha ha ha." Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and laughed. "A gentleman keeps his word. Not only that, what I said to Xiaobinghe before was true. When the day of the transaction comes, just let them come over." Aunt Qin scratched her head, her heart full of astonishment. Xiaobinghe's words were just an excuse for her to let Zhang Xiaohua come over. How could she take it seriously? In her heart, she had already taken Zhang Xiaohua's words as a joke. The process of the transaction was supposed to be decided by the disciple on duty. It was also the process of them doing something fishy. How could they let the disciples of the Misty Hall interfere? Aunt Qin couldn't help but stare at Zhang Xiaohua's somewhat childish face. In fact, it wasn't that she didn't think that this person in front of her was Zhang Xiaohua. After all, they looked too similar. And they were exactly the same. But it was because of this that she was very puzzled. How could there be no change after not seeing each other for several years? Therefore, for a moment, she was only suspicious. Of course, there was another very important reason. Zhang Xiaohua came out of the Yulon Grand Canyon with Zhang Xiaohu, Changge, and Chen Chen. If this Zhang Xiaohua was the manservant of Huanqi Manor, then as the elder brother, Zhang Xiaohu had no reason not to recognize him. But even if Zhang Xiaohu recognized him and helped to hide it, he wouldn't hide it from Changge and Chen Chen. But who were Changge and Chen Chen? They were the disciples that Aunt Qin had brought up since they were young. They wouldn't hide anything from Aunt Qin. If this young man was Zhang Xiaohua, Changge and Chen Chen would have told her at the first moment. Since they didn't say it, this person definitely wasn't Zhang Xiaohua. It had to be said that Aunt Qin's analysis was very thorough, but the result of her analysis was based on the loyalty of Changge and Chen Chen. What about Changge and Chen Chen? They had long been on the side of outsiders. Not to mention the so-called small matter of Zhang Xiaohua being the disciple on duty in the pill opening hall. They didn't mention a word about the kindness of replacing Zhang Xiaohua to spread merits and collecting all the injured disciples of the Misty School. Aunt Qin stared at Zhang Xiaohua until her hair stood on end. She unconsciously laughed and said, "Deputy Hall Master Qin, you still can't believe it, right?" "Haha, not at all." Aunt Qin waved her hand and motioned for Du Feng to leave. Then she said, "It's really a blessing for the pill opening hall to cultivate a disciple like Nephew Ren. It's also a blessing for you. If your senior fellow apprentices were like this, how could they have broken up? Of course, if it weren't for their greed, how could our hall have met such a young talent like Nephew Ren?" Zhang Xiaohua hurriedly cupped her hands and said that she didn't dare. Aunt Qin changed the topic and said with a smile, "But I have a question to ask Nephew Ren." When Zhang Xiaohua saw Du Feng leave, she knew that Aunt Qin had something to ask. She smiled and said, "Deputy Hall Master Qin, just say it. We were in the same boat just now, and I still want to stay on this boat for a few more years." "Good." Aunt Qin gave her a thumbs up and praised. "Nephew Ren is very forthright. It's nothing much. I just want to ask you about someone." Zhang Xiaohua pretended to be stunned and said, "Someone? Which senior fellow apprentice of Bai Yefeng?" "It's not Bai Yefeng's senior fellow apprentice." Aunt Qin's face was mysterious, but her eyes were staring into Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. She whispered, I want to ask Nephew Ren if you know Zhang Xiaohua. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohua secretly thought. However, since Aunt Qin had just negotiated with her and now asked her this question, it meant that Chang'e and Chen didn't tell her that she was Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua already had a plan in mind. Although her heart skipped a beat, her eyes didn't shrink back at all. She smiled and said, Zhang Xiaohua? You don't know her? What an ugly reputation. Is she a village girl? Vice Hall Master Qin, you're wrong. My pill repository hall has a majority of male disciples, and I've never seen many female disciples. If you want me to inquire about the inner sect female disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak, you're wrong. I also know very little. Then he looked at Aunt Qin's appearance and suddenly realized something. He said, could it be that she's an inner disciple of Misty Hall? Is she Xiao Tiantian's junior or senior fellow apprentice? If she's like junior sister E, Deputy Hall Master Qin should keep your mouth shut. Hearing this, Aunt Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She waved her hand and said, this person is not a female disciple of Misty Hall or Lingxiang Peak. Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, then whose name is it? Could it be Xiaohua, Xiaoqiao, or Puppy's name? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.